Hi, welcome to you all to Conversations with an Average Joe. This is a play that's been around for a while. It talks about politics. It kind of is a situation that we present in the play is really kind of nonpartisan. It's all true. It's all factual. The cast members we have were actually handpicked to go ahead and do the parts they have because it's a situation where we all are believers. We're all kind of trying to get a message out to everyone that the political system in our country is really kind of fouled up and we're trying to improve it. We have an election coming up, and one of the lines in the play is that now we have two people running for president, one who lies all the time and one who doesn't remember the truth. So we try and balance it out to where we get both sides of the issue and make sure everybody has a situation where you're able to see what the truth is, and that's our goal. So you're not going to agree with everything that's being said, but hopefully we'll make it entertaining enough to really have you understand that the problem we have in our country right now is that people are all talking and no one's listening. Years ago, this play got started as a documentary for CNN, and then I decided to go ahead and turn it into a play because I saw back then, or just 5 years ago, people were talking about a civil war was going to occur in our country. Well, compared to what it is now, it's like Disneyland. So this is going to be entertaining. We're going to have fun. It's going to be a bar. Everybody's going to be talking over each other. It's going to be hopefully just like a bar, any bar you've been into. But with a bar with people that have certain messages they want to get across, certain agendas. They all most of them know each other. By the end of the play, they're all going to know each other very well. The play is a long play. It's probably going to be about 3 hours. But the thing is, we're going to have an intermission in between. It's going to last about 10 minutes. We want to make sure that you understand the beginning of the play is going to be about all the problems we've had, what's led us to this part of our lives right now that we're dealing with, the pandemic and the economy or whatever. And then the last part of the play is going to deal with talking about more solutions and how we all join together and we fix this country. And we think we can do that. Anyway, I welcome you all. And like I said, at the middle of the play, we're going to have a 10-minute break. Thank you all and welcome again.
Jeez, man, I don't know what to think anymore. One day, everybody's all fired up about getting rid of that corrupt government. The next day, the government's talking about getting rid of us.
And now we're kind of in a limbo. I mean, there are people dying all over the country, and hardly anyone is even getting the virus here.
That's probably because no one's going and getting tested.
Well, not being on a main highway's finally paid off, but it's telling us that we can open one day and then close the next and then open again. I mean, that's just too confusing for us and customers.
Yeah, I know. Well, they'll leave us alone as long as we follow the rules.
And as long as we're not obvious when we violate them.
Yeah. Oh, hey, why don't we just change our name to Walmart's Bar and Grill?
And what did Dr. Fauci say? Oh, stay home, or if you have to go out, stay 6 feet away and wear a mask.
Yeah, after he told us not to worry because he said it wasn't going to be that bad. And it's okay to travel because you can't keep the world out. But the best is when he first came out, he told us not to wear a mask. I mean, at least then he came back and said, maybe you should wear a mask.
I like your rules. If you feel sick, don't come in. And if you do come in, we're taking your temperature, no sneezing or coughing, or you will be wearing a mask. We should put that on the door.
Yeah, just as long as we don't have a crowd, we're all right. But even getting just a little business will help.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like it's going to be happening today. All our regulars are at that community center meeting the feds called, so they're not even going to come by and order takeout.
Yeah, that makes me a little nervous. I mean, having the federal government coming to small town USA.
But they said the meeting was about lead in the water. There wasn't a virus around when they announced they were coming.
Yeah, just as long as no one brings up the virus, we'll be okay.
All right, back to paying the bills without any customers to help out.
Well, at least I could get some studying done so I could get a real job and pay off that stupid student loan.
Glad to see someone's getting a benefit today. And what's this bill for all this iced tea stuff?
What?
What is it?
I don't know. But you know what? I was just about to see if there's anything more about that meeting at the community center. If I could get this damn thing to work.
And all that yelling you just heard is from the Environmental Protection Agency meeting at the Regional Community Center that the government just this minute abruptly shut down. That was originally set up to deal with lead found in the water system, but then quickly deteriorated as attendees questioned the government's handling of the coronavirus, which has escalated all over country amid allegations that the government didn't have enough tests or medicine to protect its citizens and closed businesses with people confined to their homes. And everyone is furious as they're leaving. Let me see if I can get one of the attendees. Sir, excuse me, sir. Sir, the authorities just announced that they're shutting down the meeting because of the opposition that turned into a near riot. Could you explain what happened?
Yeah, I'll tell you what's going on here, man. It's a freaking government. They don't want to hear the truth. They're telling us go home, watch our TV, say they're going to take care of everything, right? Like they say about everything on Trump. They never do nothing, man, because these people are full of shit and they're going to be thrown out on their asses. Now they're trying to kill us and they're not even letting us talk about it. You know, it's screwed up, man. We're stopping this. Guys, let's get out of here. Let's go. Hey, Jane's Bar and Grill.
Thank you, sir. People are heading over to Jane's, which is said to be a few blocks away. I'll be heading over to continue the story.
Holy crap, did you hear that? Let's get ready.
All right, here we go.
Wait, this could be the crowd you were worried about.
Feast or famine.
Hey, at least it'll be an interesting conversation on Saturday for a change.
So it's not just going to be you and your veteran buddy solving the world's problems.
Well, with a little luck and some agreement, we could straighten out this country in one afternoon.
So what are the odds of me making any tips off this intellectual meeting of your friends?
I don't know about that, but if you stick around, you might learn something.
Well, you had to pay my bills.
Hey guys, I was just on the way to the VA and I heard that there was an angry mob on their way over here. I wanted to make sure I got a good seat.
Yeah, we just heard. It took you so long.
Oh, traffic.
All my years of owning this place, we've never had a mob.
Oh, don't worry about that. These people are going to be talking. I mean, the radio had people screaming about losing their rights, recalling the governors, senators, and congressmen. It was beautiful.
Why are everybody so fed up with all this crap? It's taking forever for the water problems in Flint and Newark to get fixed with safer water. And now all anybody can talk about is this coronavirus disaster. Oh, and on top of all that, there's another murder by a sick cop, which is going to be made about race, so you can forget about the lead in the water.
And all those families poisoned from that lead. In fact, it'd probably be about race too, but it's really because all those people were poor. It's just too much.
Maybe you should go to jail.
Ah, that'll never happen. We just go from one disaster to another till everyone forgets who's responsible for the last one.
Yeah, and then they go and cut the Environmental Protection Agency of all places, right?
Yeah, cut folks regulating water because the water's poisoned.
Why would they do that?
To cut the size of the government without thinking some of it's there for a good reason, who knows what they were thinking. But you know what? You're right. When you said those greedy politicians should go to jail, yeah, we're talking intentionally hiding knowing the water was poisoned.
Yeah, and I bet you'll never hear about problems like that in places like, Palm Springs or even West Palm Beach, right?
Because of the palms.
Oh, silly, because of the wealth. Poor people's wealth and rights don't matter as much. And pretty soon we're all going to be poor, especially now that so many people lost their jobs because the government closed all those businesses.
Yeah, and us poor folks are just trying to survive.
Yeah, you know, in class we discussed a study that showed that poor people are becoming less relevant because rich people are living at least 10 years longer. Oh, and the gap increases every year.
And another 10 years of votes for rich folks.
Well, things have got to change. Maybe this water, virus, and senseless killing shit will wake people up.
Yeah, but we need a freaking revolution to make our country ours again. That's what we need.
Yeah, well, maybe these folks will be ready to start one.
Yeah, if anybody shows up, the government goes and tells them to stay home and watch TV because they got us all under control.
Yeah, unless you got a kid who drank the water or knew someone who got the virus, no reason to waste any more of your valuable time.
Yeah, and the water deal was just the beginning. It's when they started complaining about government corruption, then the lack of medicine tests. Feds didn't want to hear about it, and then they were what? Talking about people being locked in their homes? And you know what? That's not going to fly with the people in this town. Oh, here they come now. Hey, we'll be right with you. All right, go check their temperature before you sit them.
Oh, make sure they're not coughing.
Oh, wait, what am I, that canary you told me about that they send down to the mine to see if it survives?
All right, listen, why don't you kind of take charge? Talk about that contract and constitution stuff that'll take our country back and get this economy going again. But just give them a chance to say what they want to say. That way no crazy shit happens.
Okay.
Just don't let yesterday use up too much of today.
Hey, I've got a big crowd coming over right now talking about the environment and this coronavirus stuff. You know, the government's got to start listening to us and stop making the same bad decisions over and over again. You!
Well, my environmentalist friend. I figured you'd show up today. Just don't forget there's only two ways to make things happen, right? And again, with all this crazy shit going on in this country, we only got one more chance to make our country ours again.
Right on, my brother. You said it. That's right. That's right.
Agreement from my teacher and retired buddies over there. Always nice to have somebody educated agree with me, right?
Hey, thanks, man. But us retired guys, we don't count for much anymore, man. You know that.
I was talking to my teacher buddy.
All right, hey, guys, hey. And if any of you want to order anything, just let us know. Joe here was giving his take on this crap going on.
That's right. It's always nice to have someone who has no choice but to listen to me and what I have to say. I mean, that's why I leave him such a big tip.
Yeah, tip. Hey, his last tip was for me to make his drink stronger. But this stuff with people getting poisoned and now having businesses closed because they can't figure out a solution for this virus, it's terrible.
Yeah, you know, that's just another excuse they have for throwing us out of that center, thinking we wouldn't meet anymore, right? They just don't want us to join together, and we freaking listen to them all the time, too.
Well, when I close, I'm out of business and can't pay my rent or my employees, and the government was closing schools, theaters, restaurants, churches all around the country. No public gatherings, no touching or going near each other, and ordered people to stay in their homes.
Jesus, man. You know, with the churches still closed, everyone's going to be questioning their faith and their freaking freedom of religion, too.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, it's when they started separating us on so many issues, we actually didn't get together to fight back on the ones we agreed upon. I mean, now they physically separate us from each other so we couldn't join together to either question or offer solutions as to what they're doing about this virus. And that's the problem.
Well, what about social media?
Look, we all agreed on what happened with the water fiasco, but they kept us busy arguing about a bunch of other things. Now with these grim reports from the media and government about this virus, we can't argue with them about how they're trying to fix it.
Now we're all going to suffer and nothing's going to get fixed.
So no one hears or cares about all these poor people and their kids who still don't have safe water.
I got news for you, pal. Unfortunately, nobody's going to be talking about the lead in the water anymore. It's yesterday's disaster. They're going to have us arguing about a whole bunch of other stuff from now on.
Yeah, and fighting each other, we let a bunch of traitors take away our hope for our future. And so now look around us. This is our future. I mean, really.
Yeah, you know, thinking politicians, man. This is some choice of candidacies they give us every election, right?
Yeah, now for president, we have a choice between someone who lies all the time and someone who can't remember them.
Yeah, right. Oh, and now we got to watch them all running around like chickens with their head up their asses, trying to figure out this virus shit and all the other stuff they can't figure out, right?
Well, yeah, to me, the virus seems simple. It's contagious by close contact. So it's easily spread, you know, a sneeze, a cough. If you're wearing a mask and gloves and far enough away, chances are you won't absorb any of those potentially deadly drops. Just don't touch your face.
They take it a lot further by just keeping us that much further away from each other too, right?
Yeah, but it's the way they did it. They shut everything down so the economy tanks and people become poorer than they were before. And pretty soon, the cure becomes worse than the virus. At least with the disease, there's hope that you won't get it. And if you do, you'll recover with no damage done. You know, with losing your business or job, you don't have any money to spend. And when consumers aren't consuming, more jobs are lost. So there's no hope.
Thanks to the visionaries who didn't see this stuff coming, right?
But the doctors reported that the only way to stop its circulation, or at least limit the rate it's spreading, is to separate the population from each other, limit groups, or quarantine.
Ha ha ha, Miss Reporter. Now don't y'all hold back because she's here.
Oh, don't you worry. After listening to these folks, I can tell you they aren't shy about speaking out. But this thing about keeping people separate from each other, it needs a better explanation.
I agree. So to them, separation is the perfect answer for stopping the spread of all contagious disease. So using that logic, should we stay locked up in our homes to save the 60,000 of us who die from the flu every winter? And should we cut back on how much we drive to save some of the 50,000 who get killed in car accidents every year? I mean, I never thought I'd see the day where so many people were afraid of dying that they were willing to stop living. Listen, life is a balance of risk and reward, and we get to make those choices that benefit us the most.
Well, did you hear that New York City has changed its protocol and the emergency units are now not taking patients with cardiac arrest to the hospital that they cannot revive on scene so they can focus on those with the virus?
Yeah, that's unbelievable. That's going to be a whole hell of a lot of people are going to die without chest compressions on the way to the hospital.
Yeah, you know, it's a roll of God of my life now. Now we just got to hope I get the virus instead of a freaking heart attack, right?
Well, the government's probably hoping for that too, since they can't spend all our money putting us into debt to stop heart disease.
Yet in that $2 trillion bill, our president and Congress gave $25 million to the Kennedy Center and millions in other non-necessity spending and bailouts when they could have used that money to buy ventilators and protective gear for healthcare workers.
Oh, you know what? Since we're bailing the airlines out, you think they'll give us taxpayers an upgrade, huh?
Yeah, trillions could go to free college tuition for everyone.
Looks to me, if they keep going the way they're going, not much is going to be left for saving lives. And why restrict everyone when they should be focusing on the people who are sick, whose chance of living could be a lot better if we were all working, providing support?
Yeah, and how do we even tell who's sick to help them?
I mean, it might be a little more complicated than running a bar, but we need a national effort to get everybody tested quickly so we can tell who's infected or not. And it would have to be simple to get it done right away.
Well, the Coronavirus Commission actually announced that laboratories developed virus testing machines that could give positive results in 5 minutes.
Oh, wow, really? That fits right in with the idea I have. Do you guys know that there are 435 congressional districts throughout our country, each with the same number of people? So we could fairly spread out those testing machines to every state.
Wow, it's like the same thing when you go to vote, like.
Yeah, getting the voters to the polls is like getting people tested, like those primary elections. And they said that the few centers they had could do about 1,000 tests a day. So that means, you know what, Teach, help me out on this one. How many do you think in each district?
Okay, that should be easy. So at least 1,000 tests a day, and let's say you want to do it, get it done in a month. You'll need 20 testing centers for each of the 435 districts. That's about 9 million tests per day to test just about everyone in the country.
Okay, and obviously we test everyone with symptoms first, then all the nursing homes, followed by the elderly, then everybody else, and we probably have this then under control in 2 to 4 weeks since most aren't infected. I mean, I've never done it before, but it's a plan to get everyone tested that no one seems to have right now.
Hey, you better add some more time. A friend of mine who didn't have any symptoms got tested for his job and was positive.
Another reason we have to test everyone and isolate those infected to stop it from spreading.
Which will probably cost a hell of a lot of money. And at this point, they're just throwing money on a fire, hoping that with enough, they'll be able to smother it.
Yeah, but you know those primary election campaigns have paid staffers and volunteers that go door to door and set up campaign events to get the vote out? Well, instead of spending $2 trillion giving money away, why not start a Corona Corps? You know, like the Peace Corps or something, and spend whatever it takes getting people tested.
Oh, you could probably get that done with about 10 people at each location. And even ask local military to help with logistics too.
Yeah. To do that, you could probably hire 100,000 of those currently unemployed for 1,000 a week for about a month, and train them to do simple tests around the country, and start by setting up those 9,000 testing centers for 400 million, and to do it for as long as you want, to do whatever needs to be done.
And they can also be disinfecting businesses and offices, or being an assistant to a healthcare worker who then can better manage patient care. Yeah. Like you said, focusing on simple tasks. Yeah. To make that actually make a difference.
Yeah. And it's simple. If you test positive, you would quarantine for 2 weeks. Then when cured, can join those who tested negative, going to disinfected places that have been approved by the health department.
And they can test customers and workers' temperature with the same effort that they check IDs at the door, like we do now.
You know, they tested a tiger at the Bronx Zoo and it was found positive.
That's amazing. They can test the cats in the zoo, but they can't test us. What happened? Poor Kitty was complaining about his sore throat and he had chills.
So I guess he had to be quarantined in his little apartment for 2 weeks, huh?
Yeah, listen, I got one even better. A doctor said that her pug Winston was the first dog in the US diagnosed with the virus. When she noticed that his symptoms was that he wouldn't eat his breakfast. And she said, if you know pugs, you know they love to eat. So she included Winston in this epidemiological molecular study at Duke University, where she is a pediatrician, that showed Winston was actually positive with the virus. Unfortunately, her pets, including a cat, a dog, and her lizard, were found negative.
Oh, thank goodness.
Honey, you figured it out. That's how you come to allow us to get tested, man. You just don't want to eat your breakfast, and then you got to join your dog and for a lizard, right?
Or get a doctor to adopt you as a pet.
Yeah.
Okay, so after they get those infected folks isolated until they're cured, they should be able to send everyone else back to work and open businesses, churches, and sporting events.
Right, but provided you get approved by the state and can identify customers who've been tested or cured, so that we don't have all these people walking around infecting each other.
Wow, it sounds like you really thought this thing out. I mean, you should have been at our meeting today.
Sounds like a lot of work to me.
And how would the alternative of not working going to fit in with your plans?
Yeah, and I know that 400 million our teacher friend was talking about could have saved us 2 trillion, a doomed economy, and lives.
Well, I think it'll work, but I'm not so sure that's the plan those in the swamp have for our country. I mean, when you look back at all we've been through, and now here we go again.
And the media and our leaders made it seem like everyone was going to die because of the shortage of ventilators.
Yeah, but if we cut back on the number of people being infected, we'd have plenty of equipment and efforts keeping those infected alive.
If we can just get them to listen to us.
I mean, it looks like they were just too busy to listen. I mean, as all this virus stuff was starting in China, with them preoccupied with impeachment, Harvey Weinstein, Brexit, the Oscars, and these celebrity parents who paid $500,000 to send their daughter to USC.
And while our minds were looking around for an escape from all that bullshit, our leaders were ripping us off for our money and our liberties.
Yeah, because of the greed to make their lives better at the expense of the rest of us.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Mr. Reporter over there, maybe you'll start reporting about how these corrupt politicians will somehow figure out to achieve their American dream, even in all this chaos, while the rest of us continue to live in a nightmare just struggling to survive.
And without having time to figure out who is lying or telling the truth.
Yeah, because we're kept busy being entertained by a media that has its own political and business agenda.
Yeah, talk shows that were making a fortune getting us all riled up are now fighting each other about the virus. And years after the election, Fox News was still talking about Hillary.
Yeah, and 95% of what MSNBC is reporting on is Trump.
And now it's nonstop bad news about the virus and the economy, right from the Russian investigation to impeachment to this, with trillions spent and nothing done.
And none of you media are ever offended enough to do anything about it. Like all this corruption going on. It's like it's all for showing money. So I guess you think that we think it's okay.
Hey, take it easy, man. Come on, Chief.
Okay.
Breathe.
All right.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Breathe.
Listen, I'm sorry. Listen, I'm just an average Joe and a veteran, but I can't take any more of this bullshit. All this money gets thrown down the rabbit hole, disappearing, and then lining politicians' pockets. I got to struggle in my personal life when politicians like George Bush gets tens of millions of dollars to give speeches, including a couple $100,000 to people like me who are raising money to build homes for wounded warriors who he sent over to Iraq and he should be taken care of in the first place.
Yeah, while at the same time, they're asking us private citizens to pay into that fund to build homes, that ends up paying him to give a speech.
Oh, and then his wife, she gets another 50 grand for her speech. And then Clinton, remember him? Made 100 million last year giving speeches. He gets $1 million, and Hillary gets hundreds of thousands of dollars to raise money for poor folks in Haiti whose lives were ripped apart from natural disasters.
You know what, man? They all help their friends, their families, and their business partners make millions when they were in office. Now they got the balls to come back to the world for more? Really?
And where do you think the virus money is going? I mean, does it ever end?
Yeah, and millions in pensions and allowances and Secret Service agents who guard them day and night.
Well, Congress tried to limit it, but President Obama vetoed the bill.
Oh, Obama and his wife are making millions selling their books. What?
Did you know that his national security advisor said that when Obama visited Saudi Arabia, that he and his staff were given suitcases full of jewelry so that when he made a speech in Cairo, it would be favorable to Islam, which it was.
Ooh, hey, those suitcases, they were full of those little Saudi keychains and trinkets, like, right? Yeah.
You kidding? More like gold, silver, and diamonds. And he actually said those gifts should have been turned back over to our government, and he wasn't sure if they were.
Yeah, and you'd think with all the money us taxpayers spend to protect the Saudis, they'd give us a better deal on oil.
Well, the Bushes are personal friends of the Saudis.
Yeah, there are a lot of knowledgeable people still talking about the Saudis being linked to 9/11 and funding ISIS. I mean,
yeah, well, and Obama vetoed the bill that was investigating the Saudis. That was actually requested by the relatives of the victims of 9/11.
yeah, with Congress overriding his veto.
Yeah, as Bush and Robert Mueller, the director of the FBI, the guy who investigated Trump, prevented the release of the documents exposing who was involved in 9/11.
Why are Obama, Bush, and Mueller protecting the Saudis anyway? When 15 of the 19 hijackers that crashed into the towers were Saudis. 15 out of 19.
Right after the towers were hit, Bush made sure that the Saudis were right back on a plane going back to Saudi Arabia when no other planes were allowed to fly. And he knew they would get blamed.
Yeah. Those scumbags who won't worry about their plane getting hijacked, right?
And now the Saudis are spending millions at Trump's hotel in Washington as they're lobbying to stop that bill investigating them from passing again.
Hey, man, maybe Trump doesn't know they're staying in his hotels, all right? Come on.
Listen, that's how we determine our foreign policy. The enemy of the enemy are our friends. And, you know, the Saudis hate Iran, and they stay in Trump's hotel.
Oh, wait, so we let them chop up a body of a Washington Post reporter?
Yeah, in their embassy with everyone watching, but the reason that no one would even ask what happened to him. Oh, and now we're going to sell them nuclear weapons? That's a great idea.
Yeah. Oh, hey, is it true Bush knew there were Saudi terrorists here taking lessons on how to fly a plane before 9/11 and might be planning a hijacking?
Yeah, and they knew that these terrorists weren't interested in learning how to take off our land planes.
They knew and didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, Mueller, the FBI director at the time, said that they failed to connect the dots, even with one of their agents mentioning the World Trade Center as a possible target.
Well, somebody should be investigating him.
Yeah, well, then we went to war with Iraq. Even all the evidence pointed to Osama bin Laden, who's a Saudi, as well as all those pilots flying those planes. They were all also Saudis.
Yeah, but Bush wanted to blame Saddam Hussein so we could go to war with Iraq, and nobody asked why.
Probably because Saddam threatened to kill Bush's father.
He didn't go to war over that, though, would he?
And they had to make weapons of mass destruction to give us a reason.
You know, they should have investigated the Saudis and our own leaders the way they investigate the Russians.
You know what? Maybe the Russians know what the hell happened.
I bet they do.
Oh, how does this shit even happen? And how do you know about all this stuff anyhow?
Hey, listen, I interned in Washington for my journalism degree. I even got bit by the politics bug. I was thinking of running for office.
So are you still thinking about running?
Are you kidding me? With all the corruption I saw, they'd never let someone like me make a difference. So I thought it'd be better to become, interested and expose the truth and become part of their lives.
Yeah, besides, the folks with the money decide who gets to run.
Yeah, well, someone needs to follow the money and inform the public. So I guess that's my job. So here I am reporting on city council meetings and broken traffic lights. But it's a start.
It's a good start. But let me tell you how it gets started for everybody else. It's when we began putting them on pedestals for what they couldn't do and couldn't accomplish without our support. It's either politicians who need our vote to make our decisions for us, or celebrities to entertain us so they can take our minds off how pitiful we've become. I mean, we made them all stars.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah. Like good-looking superstar Tom Brady, right? Dude, this punk, he's working out in the park in Tampa where he just went to moved to be on that team, right? The park bans people from being in there because of this corona shit. So what happens? The freaking mayor of Tampa offers this guy a public apology for disturbing his workout. Oh, why? Because he's won so many freaking Super Bowls and he chose Tampa over everybody else? Man, if that was me or you, they'd have us picking up shit in the street and fining us. But everybody loves this guy and thinks he's better than we are, right?
I mean, if he won another Super Bowl, I was going to stop watching football and switch to roller derby.
Like, I was going to get shit-faced drunk and get one of those crazy neck tattoos with his face crossed out on it. But him, I'm going to get the lawnmower fixed with the money and stuff.
Oh, yeah. You would have got him there. Brady's not going to be getting his lawnmower fixed.
Yeah, not anytime soon. Hey, but do you guys remember Pete Rose?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just an average Joe Charlie Hustle type. One of the best who ever played baseball. He bet on the other team's games, and they banned him for life and still won't let him in the Hall of Fame, and he didn't cheat.
And all they had to do was spend more money on his clothes and go hang out with some good-looking movie star so everybody would be impressed by him.
And marry a supermodel.
I just get pissed off at those who we let it get away with shit because of who they are. We allowed the rules to be different for them and us average Joes. And every time I try to think about it, how this stuff happens, it always boils down to politics and money.
Well, you know what? Fame and fortune and joy at the hip, my friend. These people, they get to that point, and then from there on, they're on an easy street. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah, shoving our faces in it, knowing we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, remember back when those Tea Party folks beat that Republican leader Eric Cantor in the primary because he represented big businesses over us? Right after he loses, he lands a $3.5 million a year job with a Wall Street finance company. $3.5 million a year.
Ooh, the Tea Party really showed him. And I bet that finance company is making some money off the virus.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell by that smile on his face on that election night that he made off like a bandit after losing. Even though Congress works only, like 100 days a year. That's an average of 2 days a week for $175,000.
So what? He got a raise. Now his buddies in Congress are going to do what those who are paying him all that money want them to do.
And that's because the game's played that way. And he was only a majority leader. Can you imagine the millions of dollars a Speaker of the House can make for their family and friends?
Yeah, like that Speaker John Boner.
It's Boehner.
Yeah, that's what I said, no? Well, anyhow, remember how he was against legalizing pot because he said it was the gateway drug for heroin? He's now getting paid millions as the main spokesperson for the cannabis industry. What a piece of shit.
Well, you had that Republican Dennis Hastert, known for his integrity. Well, he replaced Newt Gingrich as Speaker of the House. His son, Hastert's son, Joshua, closes up his record store back in Illinois. He moves to Washington and starts lobbying for Google. Google! He made $1 million for his dad. Oh, Hastert, now get this, was paying extortion to a former student he molested. And then after he retires, he gets paid $2 million of your taxpayer money to set up his office to continue lobbying Congress.
You think his buddies knew what he was doing there, huh?
That's just part of the game. And then there's the millions the Democrat Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband made on real estate deals with her help.
Oh, yeah. And then you had that guy, Trent Lott, former he was a Republican leader of the Senate. I mean, he took $1 million a year job lobbying for Russia against the sanctions the United States placed on them because of their invasion of the Ukraine. Yeah, Russia went against us, and now he's on their side.
Didn't he quit the Senate once before to become a lobbyist for somebody else?
Yeah, it was for the cell phone industry to pass the Telecommunications Act. It was on the advice of his son, who quit his job at Domino's to become a lobbyist for AT&T to lobby his dad when he was the senator.
Well, wait a minute. From Domino's to another $1 million lobbyist to lobby another dad. What do you think would have happened if their dads didn't listen to him?
Well, as a matter of fact, he helped his dad pass the act that prevents limitations on the amount of radiation from these cell towers, right? So there's no limits and there's nothing you can do about it.
So, thanks to Lott and his buddies in Congress, the phone companies are poisoning us for money.
Yeah, just like it's going to happen with Cantor and the rest of them, who are telling their buddies in Congress what companies should get bailed out and what stores should be allowed to be open and how to fix it so the industries they represent can benefit from the virus.
You know, there are millions of stories within stories that show us how these people we elected are all for sale.
With the real serious stuff that we hear about in the headlines, like this virus stuff, makes us not think about all this corruption going on.
You know, and everybody's forgetting about that nut job that's still looking to start a nuclear war, too.
Yeah, Trump keeps unraveling before our very eyes.
Yeah, I'm talking about the North Korean nut job, man. And stop picking on our president. At least he gets these other nuts to back down.
Yeah, by promising Kim Jong-un that he could guest host on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be something to see, wouldn't it? But then what? The TV didn't even give him credit. The main story every night became about that guy Mueller investigating where Trump colluded with the Russians and then his impeachment.
$40 million and thousands of hours on TV, and they got nothing.
Hey, they got a bunch of crooks and liars.
Who they would have never got if they weren't investigating something that never happened.
Yeah, right. Like the time that, right, like that time that the cops were looking for that suspicious guy in the neighborhood, right? They ended up in my backyard, nosing around in my garage. They find a no parking sign I had hidden there, just so I could park my freaking car next to my house. It had nothing to do with the guy they're looking for, and I get jammed up for this crap.
Hey, lucky thing you didn't know anyone important they were trying to get, or you'd be facing hard time.
You know, I showed the cops that night, though. I ran around the neighborhood. I found every parking ticket on the windshield I could find. I ripped it up and I threw it in the street, man.
What?
That was you?
I feel bad about it.
I think they just continue all the while to get Trump out of office before the next election, while he's dealing with Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and not his virus. They just won't leave the guy alone.
It's because he lies all the time, and he's a bully, and by far the rudest, crudest, most arrogant, and demeaning, self-centered leader we've ever had, thinking he can get away with anything. And the only thing predictable about him is that he is unpredictable.
Yes. I mean, that's the way our enemies see him as well. That's why we got to trade deals with crazy North Korea to back down, because everybody's scared shit to cross the lines he draws. And look at what happened to that terrorist, Soleimani. Imagine how many lives would have been saved had Bush or Obama done what they should have done and taken him out.
Yeah.
You know, times have changed.
Well, I don't know about that, but you might be right. I mean, it wasn't that long ago when we were talking about the beheadings by ISIS of journalists, Christians, and even Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember sitting back and watching Obama when I was home one night on one of his many family vacations, wondering if he was thinking about all that horror going on while he lined up to play putt-putt golf.
Yeah. Hey, and he kept doing it like he didn't give a crap. Oh, like his trip to Cuba at that baseball game, laughing, waving at the crowd again, right after the bombings in Brussels with 2 Americans killed. Saying he showed the terror stuff like that can't affect us. Playing his fiddle while Brussels burns.
Hey,
Hold on. Listen, the only thing he did more than travel and play golf was to raise money from those high-dollar folks he knew that realized that to play the game of politics, it takes money.
hey,
What?
that way with all of them. Don't just blame everything on Obama.
Oh, please, man. Look what he did to this country with all his hope and change, right? Dude, I got no hope left. I got a little change in my pockets, even when I'm done paying my damn bills. Oh, and now him and his wife, they're big multimillionaires with their books, right? And what the hell do you know anyway, man? You weren't even around to compare him to anybody else.
I could compare him to Trump. At least Obama brought people together instead of picking fights with everyone like Trump.
Yeah, that's bullshit. It's not true.
Hey, and I was around when Bush got us into Iraq. Tell me what Obama did that was worse than that. At least he got Osama bin Laden. Bush got thousands of troops and over 100,000 of innocent Iraqi citizens killed.
And I've been around long enough to know that all the politicians complaining about Obama haven't done anything to make our lives better.
Remember when Trump was complaining about Obama playing too much golf? Now he's playing a lot more than Obama ever did.
Yeah, and he gets to play on one of his own private golf courses.
No difference between any of them. They're all the same, taking care of each other, them against us.
You know, remember Bill Obama didn't realize his freaking mic was still on when he was whispering to the Russian president about screwing with the missile defense plans after he's freaking elected, huh?
What do you call that? That's some pretty serious shit now, isn't it?
Yeah, almost as serious as Trump working with Putin and the Russians to win his election.
Oh, God.
Oh, you boy Mueller said that never happened. And you know what? Obama did the same thing. He interfered in Israel's election. And then you know what he did? He sold us and them out to Iran, and they were fucking terrorists, and took $2 billion in cash. What about that, man?
Bush, listen, because Bush left an out-of-control nuclear deal in Iran. And Bush was behind a coup in Venezuela to try and get rid of Chavez, their elected president, causing them to go over to the Russians, now with a drug dealer Maduro in charge.
Whatever.
A lot worse than interfering in an election.
Yeah, well, you think our CIA influences other countries' elections? Don't you think Manafort was in Ukraine screwing around with the Russians?
Even so, we don't know what's going on.
And it's like, y'all don't agree on anything.
Yeah, you know, I bet 100% of us will agree that 50% of us don't know what the hell they're talking about anymore.
And it's been this way before. Just look at how the acts of our own government split us up before, especially with the wars we've had, right?
Yeah, hey, remember those papers that snuck out of the Pentagon that showed our leaders got 50,000 of our soldiers killed in Vietnam after they predicted we were going to lose the war?
Yeah, that was in the Washington Post exposing it all, and no one went to jail.
And now the Washington Post wants to send Julian Assange to jail for exposing the same kind of corruption that they exposed.
And those were war crimes committed against our own troops.
Yeah, and the whole reason we went to war in the first place is because someone made up a story about our warships being attacked by the North Vietnamese. A made-up story. Remember that?
I remember that. That was just an excuse to go to war and have 50,000 killed. 50,000? Do you hear what I'm saying? 50,000?
Like the weapons of mass destruction that got us into Iraq.
Fathers, sons, and daughters giving their lives on a whim.
Yeah, Jimmy Coffey. Man, he was the toughest kid in our high school. He returned home in a flag draped casket.
You know, a woman I teach with still talks about her brother, Richard Smalls, you know, one of those poor black kids drafted in the army from Bed-Stuy. Never heard of Vietnam, never came back.
They drafted poor kids and black kids who to them were expendable.
Yeah, but you know what? I had a friend of mine back home named Chris Silleroy. This kid had his future laid out in front of him. He goes one night, volunteers, becomes a commander in an attack boat. You know what happens to him? He gets shot in the goddamn head. I mean, he winds up living a long life with the help of his sister. But here's a guy who thought a hero with lost dreams. 50,000 who deserved a better future died as our leaders sent our kids and brothers to go get killed and maimed while their kids stayed home. How weak and submissive have we become?
Well, John McCain and Joe Biden had kids who served in combat.
As the Trump kids go on safaris to kill defenseless wild animals using a rifle with a scope.
Hey, come on, guys. You're all right. Well, let's focus on the corruption of our government and how we're going to get our voices heard.
Well, all this stuff about our wars is about corruption and how they're making money off of lives they just throw away.
And no one's held accountable for anything anymore.
Yeah, because we're spending so much time trying to escape all this crap that we don't take the time to change what's actually going on.
Well, we're not escaping anything right now. We've got plenty of time to think about all this crap that's been happening that's got us to where we're at.
Yeah, right. The impeachment leading to the virus, leading to businesses closing, to jobs lost, and a recession all in 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, remember there was football, basketball, and every other sport on TV every night. And remember when people thought Sundays belong to churches who then believe football owned that day.
And just don't be complaining about my Dancing with the Stars.
Okay.
You know, on Saturdays, we had all the car racing, the sprint car, stock car, pro scar, NASCAR. All...
Hang on, Pro Scar.
I'm sorry. That's where I take my prostate, okay?
Oh, man, really?
Piss 100 times a night, man. It's just another freaking distraction. But
Oh yeah, well, hey, I remember when sex was the greatest, most basic distraction of all.
And we're still all animals. You know, I was watching Animal Planet the other night, and I wasn't sure if the animals were imitating us or we were imitating them. Such goings on.
Yeah, whether on the plains of Africa, the lots of Hollywood, or the hallowed halls of Congress, if you've got the power, you've got it made in the shade.
And there are wild animals in every one of those places.
Yeah. And with all this shit going on, the rich and powerful still have no limits. They can do whatever they want to whoever they want. It's all about the power.
Oh, yeah, and remember how horrible it was for all these young women invited to meetings and then have Harvey Weinstein and all these other high-dollar lowlies suddenly drop their pants and look like they're practicing for an Olympic curling event as they're giving dictation.
Is that what they called it?
Well, some who want to be successful may think it's required.
hey, if some of those ladies just started laughing at me, all this problem.
Yeah, and what? Old Harvey would have probably had to enroll in what? Erectile dysfunction therapy? And he'd never go through it again.
Oh, and money has so much power that it can buy the acceptance of Jeffrey Epstein and all these other powerful sick celebrities as their abuse of young girls hides in plain sight.
Hey, listen, let's not forget that there's not many more groups more powerful than Congress, whose members have been raiding this treasury for over $17 million in settlement payments to help cover up these sexual exploits.
Yeah, a friend of mine from college went to Washington to intern for a congressman. She came back suddenly with a full scholarship, a job, and says she's not allowed to talk about her relationship.
Yeah, and they have their staff get paid, not have to show up to the office. Children born and abortions as a result of all these affairs, blackmail, extortion, all over the place. All those payouts, including that $17 million, is money that you're paying so they can stay in Congress and out of jail.
Well, those people who know the secrets have the most power.
With members trading their votes to keep people quiet.
Yeah, and some never make it home. Like that young intern, Chandra Levy, who disappeared while having an affair with a California congressman.
Yeah, that was 68-year-old happily married Congressman Gary Condit. Swore it wasn't true until they found his sperm on her underwear.
Oh, like Bill Clinton's sperm they found on intern Monica Lewinsky's dress after he swore, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. And they were doing it in the Oval Office.
That was good.
I might have left some spare change on the lady's couch sometimes, but whoa, sperm?
Listen, unfortunately, it doesn't have a good ending. They found Chandra's remains a year later in the woods of a park where she used to run only 3 miles from his apartment.
One suspect got let go because of lack of evidence, and Condit, the other suspect, lost his re-election.
Yeah, well, then you had that 88-year-old Congressman John Conyers, Dean of Congress. He was forced to resign by threatening a college intern after she refused to have sex with him, saying that he knew what happened to Chandra Levy.
Did the FBI at least ask him what he knew?
Well, then another intern actually accused Conyers putting his hand up her skirt as they sat next to each other in church. Oh, and then he paid a whole bunch of your treasury money to settle another one of the sexual complaints. Still gets paid his $140,000 a year pension, though.
The rest of Congress didn't know about that one either, right, hon?
And what's the difference between him and Epstein and the acceptance of such behavior?
Not much. Even now, with both having died without receiving any punishment for that behavior.
Oh, yeah, the House Ethics Committee calls that Treasury fund using official resources for impermissible personal purposes.
Oh, whoa. Doesn't that sound, if you say that fast 3 times, that you're proposing to screw your interns and constituents to propose to use your personal parts for pleasuring yourself?
And it's like, if those in Congress can get away with sexual assault, why would anyone bother reporting it if it happened to them?
We have no idea who they are and what they're doing.
And remember how we didn't care just as long as we had a place to escape.
And no matter what horror, whether it was El Paso, Boston, those poor kids in Florida, or even Vegas, we couldn't let our escapes of being entertained by sports or TV be canceled for 1 minute.
We couldn't even stop entertainment for a day to mourn and pray with those families. But the entertainment continued, and then we forgot.
Well, having everything stay the same was our escape. Maybe if we had focused less on our entertainment, we'd have been more determined to find solutions. But now we have the time to focus.
Yeah, remember after that horrible mass shooting in Las Vegas? The best they could do was have one moment of silence. During Monday Night Football.
Yeah, but that's the way with everything. I mean, come on. We don't want to deal with injustices unless we're forced to, or even a disagreement unless we're actually confronted. Or you know what? Even the truth if it doesn't support the side we're on. So what? We all look for distractions so we don't have to share in the misery of those being discriminated against or hurting. But come on, guys. Look, there are no more distractions. So let's use this time to resolve our differences.
And you're right, we don't have to worry about those distractions anymore. That moment of silence could still last a long time with meeting restrictions and lack of sports because of the virus.
Oh no, sweetie. They're gonna have to cancel your Dancing with the Stars now too, huh? That's also a contact sport, no?
Ha 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 ha. Yeah, well, now that we don't have a say in what's going to happen, we should share our misery and talk about how to solve the problems that our country's facing.
Like the beginning of stricter gun laws, if the NRA will allow people to vote their conscience.
Come on, man. Are you kidding me? Have you seen what they've done to us? And the most important thing you can think about is taking away people's guns. That's number one in your plan.
I think that's already in their plan.
No, I was just saying that every time there's a school shooting, we get in these big debates about what to do, but no one can get over the fact that if we can limit school shootings like in Florida, we can do it by having stricter gun laws.
I agree with you about stricter laws, but people can now get guns without even breaking the law. The tragedy in Florida occurred because of the FBI to follow through on tips they knew about a kid who was going to shoot up the school.
Just like the FBI agree, they screwed up the tips they got from the brothers in those Boston Marathon bombing when they got the tip from the FBI about the Russians, right?
Yeah, that was Bush and Mueller again. And then Bush paid back Putin for the tip by having us boycott Russia's Olympics.
Jeez, with all the shit missed and lives lost, sounds to me like Mueller was in her days long before he appeared before Congress.
They're all too busy with the politics going on in Washington that they're not able to protect us, as now we see even clearer with this virus attack.
Okay, but they're using automatic weapons to slaughter a lot of people.
You know what, though, man? Now you're starting to talk away some of the most basic rights that are granted to us by our Constitution. And as a matter of fact, if we lose all those rights, what's to stop us from losing all the other ones, man?
Wait a minute. You hear what you're saying?
What?
All those other rights were just taken away without firing a single shot. So all that talk about how important your Second Amendment rights are, when it came right down to it in real life, didn't mean a thing.
Well, you know what? The government didn't ask for my guns, and they didn't get them either.
But the only reason your guns are important to you is to protect all your other rights. And they just went through your back door and took those away.
Maybe if I feel someone's taking my rights away, I'll use my freaking guns then, huh?
But automatic weapons.
You know what, man? Anything less in these days, it'd be like bringing a knife to a gunfight, or a drone fight, or whatever the fuck they do now. But because when the government declares martial law and decides to take us over, which you know they will someday, our handguns ain't gonna do no good for us, man.
Yeah, but there's also not much we can do without planes, tanks, and ships. So we need a government we can trust.
Wait, automatic weapons belong on a battlefield, not Walmart.
Yes. Yeah, it's because of the actions of these evil, cowardly people, not the government, that demands are placed on legitimate gun owners like yourself.
Yeah, and they are cowards. When I went and faced death to protect my country, these pieces of shit stayed home and were afraid to take that chance. And they pick on unarmed citizens and kids to slaughter.
And all the people who were killed, whatever color, religion, or where they came from, had so much more to offer this country than any of these losers.
Well, until you treat the root cause of the attack, they'll continue.
Right, getting rid of guns.
No, I was thinking more about using the news, right? Since so much of this horror is done to get attention, whether it's by terrorists or kids doing it to show how powerful they are to their classmates.
But you guys don't put on the news and you cover it for days and you make them famous. Like what CNN did with that special on white supremacy the night before the shootings, that I had every kid in the country watching those shows, admiring the killings by those heroes.
You are right. We should have been reporting more about how sick and weak they are and calling them cowards who are afraid of those who can defend themselves and attack those who are defenseless, and talk about it all the time before these attacks occur.
Yeah, you know, that coward that killed all those kids and that teacher in Texas purposely let his friends live so that they would just say nice things about him. And then when asked by the reporter on TV, that's just what they did.
They should have told the news he was a coward, a monster who had everyone fooled. So everyone watching would know what a loser he is. And that's how we need to portray all of them.
Well, yeah, instead, you guys got us all distracted with the royal wedding.
Yeah, and then we get distracted by the presidents and the media, and nothing gets done. And then when I go home, I sit down, I think of that impressions of ISIS when they burned that Jordanian pilot to death in a cage, and how the King of Jordan got in his personal plane with one goal to do: bomb ISIS back to hell. And that was a Muslim leader who showed his country he had no other distractions. I don't know. Something to think about, isn't it? But I tell you what, it's good to have a conversation with folks like us who can think for themselves and come up with ideas like we're doing, like us.
Well, as those of us working or taking care of kids don't have the time to watch the news to find out how desperate things are.
Oh yeah, as I'm lucky enough to have a job listening to complaining all the time about how bad things are and how y'all don't have hope. Meanwhile, I'm in debt going to school full time on this false hope that somehow my life will get better with an education.
All right, hey, when you get a break from wiping down that table, Missy, take a look outside at that construction worker busting his ass breaking up that concrete with a jackhammer. That's a job.
I'll leave her alone. She's right. It's like all we ever do every day is talking about a bunch of negative crap going on all the time without doing anything about it. I mean, we need to join together and start changing things. That's what
Hey, okay, we agree. Just need to be a little bit more optimistic. You know, for every problem you guys talk about, there's a solution that we can come up with. Like coming up with the testing solution to the virus thing. You know, we just depend too much on the government to tell us how to live instead of us telling them what's best for us. Like now, we just gotta get away from the TV with its fake news and that iPhone walking around playing stupid games and come up with ideas and solutions.
Yeah.
And elect people more concerned with our lives than theirs.
all right.
Good stuff, man. Good ideas.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, remember when I was talking to you all about this like green movement stuff and how I thought it could really have a positive impact on our lives?
As we got bogged down talking about the global warming, as we were digging ourselves out of the blizzard of the century,
It
right?
was about climate change, not global warming.
Oh, so now you go and change the catchphrase because we had a little more snow than we had in years?
No, it's because all our pollution is causing changes to the jet stream and the Gulf Stream, which are causing more violent weather everywhere on the planet. We are changing the climate.
That stuff has been happening for years, beginning of time before there were cars and coal-fired plants. It's been happening since then. It's the balance of nature. It's just natural.
But we're making it worse than by adding more carbon dioxide and methane to the air faster than ever before.
Wait, but doesn't carbon dioxide help plants grow?
Oh, jeez, yeah. Hey, and you know what? So does fertilizer. But you'll see me sprinkling on my cereal in the morning.
Listen, if you want to start handing out blame, put your buddies over there in China at the top of the list. They do twice as much of whatever we do.
Hey, at least China signed the Paris Accord limiting emissions of every country, with Trump wanting to back out because he's more concerned with corporate profit than a healthy planet. And China is going to have to do a lot more.
Damn thing. China's like, do you know what 1.5 million people died over there last year from air pollution? They didn't do a damn thing.
Yeah, well, a report just came out and shows the pollution from China is making its way across the Pacific to our West Coast, adding to those fires.
Great. Another disaster waiting to happen. Hopefully after the virus they just sent over is gone.
I wonder if your Paris Accord is going to blame that on us now.
Hey, what we need is a carbon tax to stop the poisoning of our environment.
Oh, yeah, great. There's another tax piece along to me now, right? Yeah.
Hey, it'll help stop the drought in Africa where 20 million people starve to death.
That's a bunch of crap. It's the corrupt governments and the rebel forces that are preventing the people from getting their crops.
Oh, the drought's not causing all the food shortages.
Jesus Christ, man, come on. It's because the civil wars are not allowing anybody to plant their crops. And those 20 million people are going to starve because of people like you who blame global warming.
And you blame it all on a civil war so you don't upset major corporations whose carbon emissions create climate change.
God almighty, maybe it's because that great damn groundhog didn't see his shadow enough, causing your global
Hey, come on. Can you guys just agree that it's bad polluting the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat? Let's get back to focusing on what we agree on.
Well, listen, maybe if he stopped the genocide in Africa like he saves the whales rather than pointing at global warming for every natural disaster, I'm surprised he's not blaming the virus on global warming.
Hey, listen, in truth, there is a drought that will destroy livable land for millions. But these people are starving now because of these man-made famines by these corrupt governments who who won't allow the food to get through to the millions of children who are starving right now and dying in their mother's arms.
Now, that's what we need in politics, the truth.
Okay, so maybe you should all agree that certain issues are out of our reach and figure out a way to work on things like you can change, like you were just saying before.
Listen, I just get upset when you excuse the behavior of murderers we deal with by blaming it on shit and things we can't prove or fix. It's like we got an excuse not to change what we can.
I was just saying.
Hey, listen, can we talk about something a little more real and positive here and now that we can change?
That's what I was saying before you got all pissed off. Something positive for a change.
Yeah, like what?
Like using Mother Nature to supply us with all the energy we need free of charge.
Free?
Well,
Free.
maybe not exactly for free, I guess, since I guess someone else is still in charge of how we get it from Mother Nature. But then why shouldn't it be free? Like, why can't we have a direct line to nature without the middleman?
Like burning wood with the fireflies.
Right?
I mean, what if the government just gave everyone equipment to get free energy from our environment so that all we're spending now on heat and electric, we could spend on other things that would stimulate an economy that right now needs a lot of help. Just think about it. It's a heck of a lot of money to spend.
Now, he's got a point. I mean, you know, they could have given us almost $1 billion to spend on solar instead of Solyndra. Do you remember that company that President Obama got all that money for, and then they went broke because they were giving out to their own executives so they didn't have to worry about their own utilities without providing one extra job?
Benefit of being a friend of the president.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to say. Imagine this. I'd figured the government could spend that $1 billion for $2,500 of equipment for 400,000 families to provide solar heat or wind electricity or whatever source of energy they develop and be off the grid. 400,000 families. Am I right?
Okay. 400,000 families times $2,500 if they could build it for that. Yeah, and it all starts with creating demand. You know, companies probably would be falling all over themselves to develop and manufacture higher quality, less expensive units to fulfill that demand that eventually could be equal to what it costs to produce oil or coal. It's called economies of scale. So you're right. It actually sounds reasonable. But government always seems hell-bent on helping big business build up supply first before someone wants to buy it. You know, putting the cart before the horse. In economics, that's where the term ass backwards comes from.
Hey, but wait a minute. What you guys are talking about is socialism.
No, it's about the government wasting our money on big businesses who are cheating us instead of giving it back to us, putting money in our pockets to spend improving the economy, creating more jobs by buying stuff, which I do believe was supposed to be the intended purpose of the stimulus bill and the trillions it cost.
Trillions? Now wait.
Yeah.
Listen. Imagine, what if they just spent a part of those trillions on giving everybody in the country one of those units? Do you think companies would be falling all over themselves to competing to make those units, like you said? Do you think it would actually stimulate an economy, like you said?
Oh, I don't think the utility companies would want that.
Yeah, and if it's not good for them, it's not good for the coal industry that sells the coal to make electricity, or the railroads that transports the coal, or even the oil and gas companies who are already replacing coal and heating and lighting our homes, or the utilities that couldn't survive if we didn't depend on them for all our energy needs.
And in the crosshairs of the thousands of lobbyists and the hundreds of $millions they'll spend to make sure your girlfriend, Mother Nature, doesn't win out.
At least it would give us a chance to improve our economy, or what's left of it.
And help people who can't afford their utility bills.
But the utility companies are already in charge. Check out your electric bill and see how much of what you're paying for is renewable energy that your monthly payment was used to create. You could have created that solar and wind power on your own with that idea of yours. But now they got us paying for what should have been for free again, with the government giving them the tax breaks that you should be getting.
You know, we may have stumbled upon an answer how to get a rebound from this financial calamity. It's this idea that we can provide for our own energy and pump up our savings into creating demand. You know, us consumers now spend over $1 trillion every year on fossil fuel energy costs and give over $650 billion in industry subsidies.
These energy and utility companies make billions in profits while destroying our environment and polluting our air and water and not paying for the waste they create. And eventually, we're going to have to switch to cleaner energy. So why not now?
Because the government always protects corporations instead of us citizens, who not only pay for the government, but elect the people running it. They've never been on our side.
Yeah, but you watch as the government will once again bail out corporations with this new stimulus deal so their executives don't suffer. Even though corporations don't create jobs with money from government, it's people who create jobs by having money to spend on stuff. Even though for now, we're not going to have any money to spend.
This deal really sounds far-fetched, but I do agree that we need a change too. I mean, the corruption, the partnership between the energy company and the politics, the government's taking money out of our pockets so we don't have anything left to spend, will never let our economy rebound. We definitely need to change things.
Now that just makes good common business sense. And what's happening to those trillions of dollars?
Remember how things used to be? We thought stuff made sense. And before this virus took over our lives, we found out about how all that incompetence and corruption allowed for the poisoning of our water, causing people to buy water in toxic plastic bottles since they're not able to drink tap water.
Which is probably better for you than that bottled stuff.
Except if you live in Flint, Michigan or Newark. Besides, how do we know that the plants bottling the water don't have lead in their pipes?
So eventually, we'll have to choose between a toxic plastic bottle or lead in water from the tap.
You know what? You guys, you're all crazy for buying that bottled water shit. I still drink water out of the hose, man.
Yeah, those were the old days when no one cared about what you did with the water. Today, computers measure every drop.
Oh, yeah. Get this, Gino. When I was arguing with the Water Authority, complaining about my bill last month, man, these people were able to tell me I flushed my toilet 8 times the night before. Can you believe this? The water company knows how many times I flushed my freaking toilet the night before. I told them, I said, hey, guys, next time you see that, do me a favor. Give my doctor a call. Tell him my freaking prostate exploded or something, man.
With all that's going on, I'm pretty sure that your prostate will be at the bottom of your doctor's list.
Yeah, and you thought the NSA was the only one who knew when you were coming and going.
Guys, and water is just another part of nature that government took control of. And now send us a bill to fund an incompetent bureaucracy that can't even deliver good water.
Hey, Martin Luther King Jr. wanted to know why people had to pay water bills in a world that's 2/3 water.
I'm surprised air is still free.
Maybe for not much longer. We're out of money. I mean, we had more debt than all the goods and services produced in our country. That was before the arrival of this virus.
Yeah, and now there's not enough taxes to pay for it unless they figure out something else to tax, or they'll have to keep raising our debt, which they're going to have to keep doing anyway because of this virus expense.
But not taxing the air. I was just kidding. It's all around us. It's
if they tax the air, maybe they'll at least make it cleaner.
Yeah, like they did with the water.
Since the virus hit, the world's air is amazingly cleaner. Just look at those satellite images that just prove that fewer car emissions makes a healthier planet.
Maybe there's just fewer people walking around the cities vaping.
Everyone's life was simpler and a lot less expensive. And now with all this new technology, shouldn't everything at least cost less, including taxes?
Yeah. Listen to this. They were using all these new nail guns, right? Instead of hammers, to rebuild half my freaking house when a water pipe burst when they went away fishing for a week. Yeah. The water company must have thought I pissed 10,000 times that night. But she's right. They used all these nail guns and all this shit. And you know what? It costs the same. It costs even more in the end. Really, it did.
It took a little over a year to build the Empire State Building and over 11 years to build the new World Trade Center with all the nail guns and cranes and a whole bunch of modern technology. And it costs a lot more every time the government gets involved.
Wait. You can't just use those simple comparisons to choose one side or another when the issue is a lot more complicated. And, it also took 14 years to build the Brooklyn Bridge.
Because nobody was in any hurry to go over to Brooklyn back then.
Anyway, we used to have more control over our lives and more money in our pockets. And now it's going to be so much worse.
What do you think is going to happen?
Well, big business with the help of big government will convince us to continue to spend, so we'll go further into debt so they can survive.
Yeah, right. And by increasing the big fees and taxes, the government sneaks on all our shit all the time that we buy. Pretty soon we have no money in our pockets, and we wonder where the hell it all went to.
Like I said, take a look at your utility bills or anything the government regulates and see how much they charge.
Oh, you're not kidding me. Believe me.
Listen, we know the game they're playing no longer benefits us. They're not going to want to get rid of the utility companies either.
But we notice what happens when things like gas prices drop and we have extra money in our pockets. We spend that money again and again.
By going out to eat more.
Allowing Jane here to hire another cook, and our waitress gets to pay her tuition and go shopping for more clothes. And the clothes store owner gets to buy new tires for their car. The tire dealer gets to buy a new car. The government doesn't lose a dime while stimulating the economy, rather than sneaking that money out of our pockets because they think we're too stupid to know how to spend it.
But the government can also help us with things that both save us money and are good for the environment, like growing produce on polluted waterways, like lakes and the East River. Oh, and stuff like electric cars.
Hey, next time you see one of those smug hipsters drive around this little electric car, right? Won't you hold off on giving them a thumbs up? Yeah, look at them. For protecting the environment for a second, man. Think about those trainloads of coal. You know, they get those big pits in the ground. They get delivered to those toxic smoke building plants. They radiate the high voltage wires leading into those little clean electric plugs of yours. Yeah, bravo. Nice solution, my friend.
I drove you to the meeting in my electric car.
Oh.
Box of yours is electric, really? It figures. It's great.
Well, now you'll get to go home in one of those big, beautiful gas-powered buses.
Oh, what happened here? I thought we were friends. I thought we were cool. What's up here?
Sounds like they're both on the same side.
Yeah, go figure. Turns out the environmentalist is the polluter. And who knew? The polluter's an environmentalist.
What it sounds like is we've come full circle for more money and more pollution because the government doesn't want us to know what's really going on.
Yeah, of course they don't want us knowing what's really going on. It's about power. And anyone who has it doesn't want you knowing they have it. You know, they take us for idiots, lollygagging around, thinking life will be better for our kids. You remember the news guy who wrote the book about the greatest generation? Well, we became their spoiled, rotten kids.
You know, this is the first time in history that things aren't going to be better off for the next generation. I even received a report that says their life expectancy isn't even going to be as long as ours.
Great! Now I have even less time to pay off my student loan.
Hey, I tell my students all the time it wasn't intentional. We're all just like frogs put in a pot to cook.
Hang on, frogs?
Yeah, you know, where you throw it in the boiling water and it screams as it jumps out. It knows better.
No frogs, capiche? I'm a dog person.
So that's why you don't sell frog legs anymore. You didn't know why they were jumping out of the pot and couldn't catch them.
Yeah, lucky the cows are too slow to get off the grill where we cook the steaks.
Oh, okay. If you put a frog in cool water and gradually turn up the heat, you'll have a cooked frog. It doesn't know what's happening until it's too late. We became contented frogs in a pot of water, you know, comfortable and secure. With those we elected in charge of turning up the heat, and we don't even question what they're doing.
Because we don't have information into what they're doing until it's too late and they made the decision for us. Like the shutdown of our economy because of this virus disaster. I mean, they took away our liberties and our contact and our income. There's nothing left to consider. It's just out of control.
That's why we're not going to be able to realize about the inequality they're creating until it affects us or someone we know and have a hard time understanding what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes. You know, my father used to tell me to be nice to the people on the way up because you're going to meet them on the way down. And now the lines are a lot longer on the way down.
You know what my parents used to say? They say, that's how the other half lives. When we're talking about people that were more well-off than us, except right now, the other half has become 1%.
Well, for me, the change happened so fast that I didn't even realize it until one day the door opened and, you know, to get in line and someone said, going down? It all started when I lost my job at Lehman Brothers, you know, from $150,000 to substitute teaching at high school, economics 25, you know, I found out what it's like to be one of the frogs getting cooked.
Hang on, so you mean I make more money than you pouring drinks?
Yeah, don't remind me. I'm one of you guys now. No more Mr. Big Shot.
I see they join us there, pal.
Yeah, anyway, I was still hanging around my big shot buddies. So my friend John, who works for Goldman Sachs for 300 grand, yeah, 300,000, gets us great tickets to the game back when we're still able to go hang out with our friends and go to basketball games. And I guess we were both in a hurry to get there. And I just knew I went through one of those red light cameras.
Oh, I hate those things.
They ruin lives.
Yeah, a month later, I get a $150 ticket in the mail, which becomes a big deal because it takes a third of my paycheck, and my wife's pissed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're barely making it now, and she's studying to be a nurse when I watch her kid. And anyway, it turns out John also got a ticket and was joking how it happens to him all the time, and the $150 is nothing since the ticket doesn't go on our record. You know, it got me thinking how the government applies laws equally to everybody, forgetting this country is made up of very different people.
Yeah, like my friend Jose, he gets $15,000 a year, and he got a red light ticket. He lost more than half his weekly pay that he uses for rent and groceries for his family. Where does that money come from?
Yeah. Me and John never had to think twice about it. I do now. I used to think that red light cameras were there to keep people safe. Now I know better.
When you're poor, you see things the rich don't.
Hey, I'd make the argument that the poor guy learned not to go through red lights, but then the government's telling people how to act based on their income. And now I'm the poor guy.
You know what? Oh, man, those cameras, they're just there to make the government more money. You know why? Because they don't have the friggin' balls to tax the rich for the money they need. So they got to invent all these red light cameras, tickets, all these stupid kinds of fines. You guys tell me, how's that for equality, huh?
Yeah, and they'll never suspend those cameras, even though now we don't have any money coming in to pay those fines because the government needs to survive more than we do.
That's kind of how the tax system works.
Yeah, and we're all supposed to pay taxes, aren't we? But some people don't pay any while others pay more, and some of those who don't pay any make more than those that pay more.
Whoa, what'd you just say, man?
You know that the Treasury Secretary appointed by Obama doesn't even pay his taxes?
And the guy appointed by Trump hid his money in the Cayman Islands to avoid taxes.
Yeah, and Trump was the first candidate for president who didn't release his tax returns.
But he requires us to submit tax returns before he'll rent us an apartment in one of his buildings.
And he thinks we're stupid by telling us we'll receive higher percentage increase in wages than rich folks from tax breaks. So if we make $20,000 and get a 10% increase, it equals $2,000. And if someone making $200,000 only gets a 5% increase, which he says is half as much, it equals $10,000, which is 500%, 5 times more than what I got.
And the really rich keep getting a lot richer thanks to his tax breaks for the poor.
You know what? Let's make it simple. Give everybody the same amount of money.
Well, that's what they did with the $1,200 in the stimulus bill they gave to all of us making under $99,000.
Right. Oh, so the rich guy, he's not even going to know the money's deposited in his account, right? Well, the poor guy, he's got to go out and get iBox. Xbox. To find out how miserable his finances and his life has become, right?
And it costs $290 billion to give all those people those one-time checks. And the stimulus bill was for another $2 trillion, and no one asks why.
Why not give it all to the people to pay for their rent or food? I guess now they have an excuse to pass another bill that still won't bail out those struggling to survive.
And the rich change the way things get presented, so they get to play by different rules.
Or the same rules with a different outcome. Like when they propose a tax reform that's supposed to help the middle class, and then they slip in tax breaks for private jets.
Oh, maybe that's with all those little small economy-sized electric jets. Like
Yeah. Well, when I worked at Lehman, I used to complain I had less than $100,000 left over at taxes. And John had a lot more left over than me. But now I had to pay that $150 ticket out of nothing remaining, while John had to pay his $150 out of probably close to $200,000 he had left with all his tax breaks and all. I'm not saying it's not fair. I'm just saying what it is.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Sorry. There's a lot more to it than how the money gets left over and how it's spent. Look, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I'm a law student at Columbia. And I mean, if we really want to figure out what's fair, let's not lose track of those with less income who have more likely to go to jail than these rich folks that are given the same crimes because of money's influence or lack thereof.
Oh yeah, hey, you guys remember that little piece of shit, Ethan Couch, who killed 4 people while driving drunk and was given probation? Yeah, his attorney used the affluenza defense. Remember that? Affluenza, that he was affluent, too rich to know the difference between what's right or wrong because his parents didn't discipline him. Remember that crap?
You know, well, if I was a public defender, I'd now use the destitution defense, that someone's afford to know the difference between right and wrong, especially if they were committing a crime because they couldn't find a job to buy food or didn't have any parents around to provide any discipline.
Or got a red light ticket.
Okay, but using that same logic, are you saying we should let everyone out of prison whose parents didn't discipline them?
No, that's what that judge was saying. I'm saying it's another example of how income inequality has changed not only justice and fairness in our society, but the interpretation of our laws.
The only reason he got away with it was because he was rich.
Yeah, imagine what would have happened if he was poor and black.
Yeah, like as opposed to those 2 poor black innocent guys from Cleveland who were just released after 39 years in prison, falsely accused of murder by the police.
Yeah, and make no mistake, that one was about race too.
So yeah, think if they were 2 rich, innocent, black or white guys, they'd have gone to prison?
You know what they should have done? They should have taken the cops, the judge, the DA, anybody else that lied to get these guys convicted, throw their asses in the prison for 39 years like these guys had to serve, right?
That'll never happen either. All those folks have money. And don't forget, crimes with corporations only pay a fine.
Yeah, well, us blue collar types get jail time. So you can say again, poor folks need to learn not to commit crimes.
Look at the difference between OJ and Rodney King, right?
Yeah, but I mean, look what happens when a white officer wrongly kills somebody who's black and gets away with it.
No, that can never happen again. That's a miscarriage of justice.
You know what, though? You know what, though? Sometimes they're just bullies. He didn't do it because of a person's race, but you know what? Racists on each side always turn everything into a freaking race war all the time.
Wait, so are you saying that the killing of George Floyd wasn't racially motivated?
Well, no, it may have been. But this was a bully cop who had 17 complaints against him. The guy shouldn't have been out in the street. He should have been behind the desk. So, and all those complaints had nothing to do with, didn't all have something to do with black men.
And he was an accident waiting to happen. Right. And the mayor and the police chief knew that and should be equally responsible for George's death.
Yeah, and the police union that fought to keep him on the force.
Yeah, you can't stop a sadistic piece of shit from killing another person. But we can sure as hell stop him from being in a position of authority that doesn't allow a victim to defend himself.
It sounds like the lead in the water deal, with kids getting poisoned as the government and corporations knew what was going on.
Listen, I remember seeing the news on that guy, Eric Garner. Remember that guy was killed for selling single cigarettes that weren't taxed?
Yeah.
Gets attacked by 5 policemen who had nothing better to do than harass this poor guy just trying to survive. I mean, and they knew Eric wasn't going to fight back.
Yeah, and if that could happen to a father of 6 for doing nothing, it can happen to any one of us for things we all do that are a lot worse, especially when you're black.
And can you imagine what it must be like for a black parent to have to tell their kids to behave differently than other kids when around the police? I mean, it's just not right.
Yeah, and at least black kids don't have to concern themselves about all the little stuff that their white friends have to worry about, like going through a red light camera. I mean, they're worrying about a police officer thinking about killing them just because they're reaching in the glove compartment for their registration after being stopped for a broken tail light.
Wow. Oh, my God. We all need to put ourselves in those shoes.
Yeah, but we also just need to be honest and realize that it's not all black and white. Racists on both sides of the issue will never allow the facts to determine what's right and wrong.
Yeah, well, don't forget, Freddie Gray's death at the hands of the Baltimore Police Department was what started this whole Black Lives Matter movement. And 3 of those 6 police officers in charging Gray's death, they were black.
Yeah, but George Floyd's death struck a nerve. Like Eric, he was submissive and not fighting back, and they killed him in public before the whole world because they knew that they had that right, the power to get away with it.
You know what? They're all sick pieces of shit.
Yeah, they are. And so are those who continue to let it happen. And all those who become submissive and don't fight back against authorities who have the power to control our lives and take our lives. I mean, it's like what they did to Eric and George and Breonna and Elijah. And that leads to these racists thinking that they also have the authority. And then we lose an Ahmed who was just crossing paths with them while jogging.
Wait, but there are protests happening all over the country involving everyone. People have risked their lives to join together. That's got to make a difference.
Yeah, there are more demonstrations right now than what occurred when Dr. King was assassinated.
No, but also lootings and shootings and buildings and businesses burnt down in neighborhoods that need the police that they're protesting to protect them.
And then the rioting becomes the news and the distraction when it should be the unjustified killing of a citizen who wasn't fighting back.
Yeah, well, of course, then it moves on to the injustices done by the South's heroes from the Civil War with destruction of statues and changing the name of these army bases.
I remember serving in Folk Polk, Louisiana, with a bunch of black guys from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. They had no idea who General Polk, who the fort was named after, was not only a Confederate general, but a slave owner. Did you know that?
Yeah, and they just recently put a statue of Union Army General Ulysses Grant on grounds of West Point, which all these years instead has honored Confederate General Robert E. Lee, who lost the war to General Grant.
They even found out that the guy who Yale was named after was a slave trader. So now they need to get rid of his statue at the university entrance and then change its name.
Yeah.
Hey, man, they should change it to jail.
Well, listen, it turns out the guy who founded Yale, his name was actually Dummer. So they decided to pick the slave trader.
There are probably tens of thousands of success stories that occurred on the backs of slaves that need to be individually sorted out and straightened out. But geez, don't be blaming everybody. Most of us fought together to end slavery.
And why did it take so long to get rid of slaves anyway and make them free like human beings? And how could they possibly let it happen again? I mean, they keep talking about the past, changing statues and names, while today it's estimated there are 40 million slaves in the world today. Today, slaves. Slavery now is a lot different than the millions who were sold to the British and the Dutch by African tribes to ship to the Americas.
Yeah, well, back then, those poor slaves were traded for weapons so that African empires could expand and capture even more slaves. Of course, slavery now has added to its appetite of enslaving so many to work without pay. I mean, by selling little girls and little boys as sexual deviants and trading for organ harvesting and women forced into prostitution. And these children, they become soldiers. I mean, can you imagine what that must be like? What happens to their souls?
Souls? They have no souls. And it's like drugs. If there wasn't a demand, there wouldn't be a supply.
Yeah, and how many wealthy people and corporate shareholders prosper from this ongoing profitable industry, with even countries we support having it as a major money maker.
Yeah, and on the news last night, I read that it was proven that 58,000 kids were kidnapped last year in the United States by strangers for sex. It's like, how can we let this stuff happen?
Yeah, and while it may be important to tear down a statue or change a name, that can be done anytime. But the effects of slavery will go on forever unless we all join together now to stop it.
Yeah, but we've done that before.
Yeah.
Do you imagine what would happen if ISIS ever invaded us? They'd be tearing down statues, burning flags, libraries, destroying our history, everything, just like they're doing in Iraq and Syria, just like they're doing outside here.
And you don't think there's going to be terrorist attacks, though, with all this chaos and defunding of police going on?
And the poor folks, black and white, are the ones who are going to get hit the hardest. When the riots and lootings, with those well-off can regroup and refinance. It's the poor businessmen serving the poor neighborhoods that's destroyed forever.
It's because they lose control of their issues in protest and let rioters not only take control of neighborhoods in protest, but they become the news, replacing the issues that so many are trying to resolve.
Yeah, and then they lose control and don't represent what's good for Black lives, like that young Black man that was shot and bled to death because those organizers in that Chaz takeover in Seattle wouldn't let the police or emergency units come in to save the guy.
Yeah, and the virus is spiking again, and it's not even the main story. Talk about a distraction.
This can go on and on and on, taking up all of our time right now, but it doesn't seem like anything's improving.
And again, spending all our time on distractions from the past rather than changing the present, which has more of an impact on the future.
Yeah, if they want to make an impact and make a point, they need to look toward those racists with the more current history, like former Democrat Senator Robert Byrd from West Virginia, who he was a member of the KKK, and he tried to stop the passage of the Civil Rights Act. Yeah, there's no doubt about him, and he's got a bunch of statues and buildings and portraits hanging in our nation's capital. But politicians protect their own because someday someone may have something on them.
Oh, hey, didn't Obama give the eulogy at his funeral? Huh?
They're not prepared to go too far or too close to home.
And statues and names are too easy to change. And you're right. That's the history they want us to deal with, so we don't become distracted, and so we stay distracted and don't focus on the right choices and the truth, which in everyone's mind would set us free. You know, years ago, there was this young Black boy in Mississippi named Emmett Till, who was accused by Carolina Bryant, some white woman, of flirting with her, causing her husband and his brother to abduct Emmett, mutilate his body, and throw him in the river. And as hard as it was, Emmett's mother had his casket opened at the funeral to show the world that his son's mutilated body was the result of barbarism of racism. Now, a trial was held, but the Bryants were found not guilty by an all-white jury. And then a year later, at a magazine interview, they admitted to killing Emmett. Now, while good came out of that and sparked the outrage that pushed forward the civil rights movement, in 2008, Carolina Bryant admitted that she fabricated the whole story, and we just let it pass. It seems like we always just let it pass.
Yeah, and then you have Ethan and Emmett. Ethan's the rich white kid who gets away with murder, and Emmett's the poor Black kid who gets mutilated and murdered.
Yeah, one has a family with affluence and all the power that money can buy, and the other with a family that influences our country in a way that money could never buy. But it feels like there's never any justice. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing for Emmett, so we can honor him and his mother by at least always making sure that the truth is told.
Yeah, unfortunately, the truth is that there are those who don't want to have the facts decide what's right and want everything blamed on race. While those involved in these horrible events on either side could really be bad people or just someone who makes a mistake.
Well, that's why we need better training and screening to make it easier to get rid of bad people. I mean, we should be spending the money on a police force that protects everybody equally.
And now where's that money going to be coming from? We can't afford higher taxes, and this virus is going to take away a lot of income from those of us in business, and those unemployed aren't going to be paying taxes. And all that talk about defund the police better not mean fewer police to protect us, but will require more spent on training and social programs.
Well, what about having the wealthy pay more taxes so it's fair?
You mean making it balance? Like the redistribution argument.
What does that do to bring a balance to justice? And where do you think their money will go? You know, it goes from those who spend growing the economy, creating jobs, to government that'll figure out a way to waste it.
And government continues to grow by increasing our taxes and fees, taking money out of the economy that would create jobs for those who can't find employment.
And mayors and governors will spend those taxes they collect, hiring their friends, family, and politically connected people who may think they could get away with murder too.
Yeah, instead of those minorities who need the job to escape the cycle of poverty that in many cases leads to a life of crime.
Hey, color might seem to provide a dividing line on some communities, but it's economics that causes the separation.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what? It sounds like it all makes sense. But this is what I hear every day in the bar. We know what should be happening, but what are we doing about it?
Well, we can show them we can determine our own future like the founding fathers of our country did in the past, who also allowed a way to change the Constitution ourselves so we don't have to wait for a corrupt Congress to do it for us.
Changing the Constitution?
Yeah, didn't you learn that in school, Missy? Legislators can call what they say is a convention to amend the Constitution to take back control of our country.
It'd be worth it just to stop scams like the red light cameras from affecting our survival.
Survival?
Yeah, that's right. It's like a company shows up out of the music man, giving cameras to cities, telling them they'll increase revenues without spending money on equipment or enforcement. I mean,
sounds like the perfect deal for mayors and councils representing the best interests of the government over us.
Yeah, because over half the money leaves town with the camera company, never to be spent on things that normally multiply through the community. Remember what happens when the price of gas goes down and everybody stimulates the economy by having more money to spend? The opposite happens when those camera people show up and we get a ticket, or we lose our jobs because the government decides to close our businesses. We don't have as much money to spend. We can't go out to eat as much. And Jane has to cut back on her cook's hours, or our waitress can't pay her tuition for school or go shopping for more clothes. And the clothes store owner can't buy tires for their car.
Teach, Remember Bobby used to run the Target store? Yeah. He had to take out a loan and lay off a worker just to pay off the rent on his damn store that time.
Yeah. That was when the government had to raise taxes and take more money out of our pockets. Now with this virus, there's no money in our pockets.
Oh, we need to trust in common sense and human nature. I mean, if we have it, we're going to spend it. If we don't, we can't. And it's going to be a while before we got any more extra money to spend.
Yeah, those hurried decisions, stopping practically all businesses to control this virus by isolating people rather than identifying those needing treatment. You know what? It didn't make common sense or business sense.
No.
Those not infected could have continued with normal lives and businesses. But now, all of us are going to suffer from this virus rather than those just infected. And how much can we cut out of our lives to survive? Or better, how much can the government cut?
Well, I can't cut anymore. I'm barely paying my bills right now. The Restaurant Association said that if they keep people quarantined for any length of time, 25% of restaurants will close and never be able to open up again.
Yeah, that's because if you lose your job, you can't go out to eat as much. And so it happens all the way down the line to where people can't afford their escapes of entertainment like ball games or Broadway shows. It affects us all. It becomes like that red light ticket I was telling you all about, but like on steroids.
Jesus. Oh, so the rich, they can continue to make money investing in face masks, ventilators, charging us for movies on TV when we're stuck in our damn house with nothing to do but order takeout food from the freaking guy that's delivering. He might give me the freaking virus, right? And then I still gotta pay my rent with a paycheck that's not coming in, man. Huh?
Well, used to be that our only hope was to bring the cost of governing down so we'd still have something left over to spend.
Yeah, but back then we ended up getting so distracted with the mess of things that it shouldn't matter, you know, or now a virus that does that we don't notice that the government's been turning up the heat in the pot I was talking about.
Problems that there's not enough average Janes and Joes running our country, and we have no idea what all these big shots are even doing. Those folks don't have any clue how we live, and now being middle class is just a pink slip away from being poor.
Yeah.
Flip.
Pink slip.
Think so? Yeah, it's like it's losing your job.
And being poor is just one illness away from living in a car with your family.
Yeah, and that might be happening to a lot of people pretty soon.
I know a while back I started realizing just how much out of control it could become when I helped start a group called Project Share to feed the homeless. Other restaurants helped out until we had every night and lunches covered, all privately without any government help, serving hundreds every day. Our volunteers cooked and served lasagna and thanked people for coming, told them we'd hope we'd see them again. It was cool.
Yeah, it was like going to a real restaurant.
I used to love to go there, man.
Yeah, I know you did. Yeah, everybody felt good. I even got volunteers from a local hospital to offer exams, and other groups showed up with clothing and job offers, a one-stop shop.
Wow. See, that shows what you can do without the help of the government and makes you wonder what they're doing with all those taxes.
Well, let me tell you.
You do that.
You see, we pretty much had everything covered except shelters for families who were sleeping in their cars. When we found a family like that, we all chipped in for a motel room, but we had no idea that there were so many. So I found a federal housing hotline that we heard was offering housing for those families. Finally, after weeks of leaving messages, I found their downtown address.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It was like they were hiding.
Now, as I walked into this large office in this old government building, I noticed at least 15 to 20 people standing around talking, playing games on their phone, drinking coffee, and some outside smoking cigarettes as the phones rang.
You know, I always wondered what government workers were doing when I'm waiting for a real person to answer the phone.
Yeah, so I find the supervisor who tells me that they ran out of money for homeless housing a while back, but we're making a list of messages to call back as soon as funding started up again.
I bet the employee whose guess is furthest away from the actual number of messages called in was the one who had to make a list of those messages at the end of work.
So I asked how he's able to pay all of the staff standing around, and he says there were just a few in the beginning, but as demand for housing increased, more people got hired. Then as the program expanded to include people with different needs and higher incomes, money became tight until they couldn't provide for emergency housing funds anymore.
So the bureaucracy grew beyond its capabilities to provide for families with kids sleeping in the backseat of a car?
I asked if he thought about cutting employees to have money for housing again, and he said policy didn't allow that, adding that it was getting worse since employees were receiving raises and benefits.
Hang on, what? Raises and benefits? Are you kidding me?
Okay,
my
okay.
gosh.
So the government starts a good program, but when it came time to choose between its original purpose and bureaucracy won out.
Yeah, purposely bringing harm to those it's supposed to care for by wasting money instead of giving it to those in need.
I told him that it reminded me of a plastic container of milk, providing nutrition as long as the milk lasted, with the container continuing to live even when sent to a landfill.
That's good. I like that analogy.
Oh, thanks.
No, you know why it was? It was because at that point they didn't care anymore, man. They would just get a job and keep a job. If they could, make some more damn money for themselves along the way if they could. That's all.
Yes, that is right. And if that supervisor would have complained to higher ups, he and all the people he was supervising would have been out of their now cushy jobs. Then the elimination of jobs would have continued until they were back where they started, when someone realized that there were families living in cars.
Yeah, maybe someone will swarm our house and hotline employees, right?
Well, now, of course, with all this stuff we read about, we can see this is just the tip of the iceberg with probably thousands of deals just like it and billions wasted.
But the real tragedy are all these poor people who are desperate, who should have been cared for.
Yeah, so when Congress is screaming about cutting entitlements to balance the budget, we need to tell them that we need to start with the waste and corruption that the government thinks it's entitled to.
Oh, yeah. Hey, did you all hear they just announced they can't afford Meals on Wheels? But they can afford to spend $400,000 feeding and housing 100 Secret Service agents in hotels in Aspen to watch the Trump kids on their vacation.
Oh, yeah. What about that cabinet secretary who spent over $1 million in 6 months renting private jets just to fly him around the country?
Yeah, he even rented a jet to take him from D.C. to Philly.
Really? Jesus, it probably took one longer to fuel the damn jet up than it would have taken him to get his fucking car and drive there.
Yeah, right? At least Trump fired him.
I guess he's back to flying coach, paying for his luggage with some guy drooling on his shoulder as he eats peanuts.
Now, how come they always cut programs for the less fortunate and people like us, but they never touch the ones that government and Congress and their staff enjoy? How come?
Come on. We're talking about families struggling to survive that we taxpayers intended to help make it just to the next day, with kids tucked in at night in the backseat of a car. And now there might be a lot more. I mean, it just makes me sick.
Yeah. It makes me sick too. But you know what? Government can be pretty bad. But at least in the private business, you have a choice on how and where to spend your money. Me being a retiree, I got to watch every dime, and I got to worry about them taking my pension too. But, you know, these free refills are giving me honest iced tea. Just one of the only deals I can find now.
It was you?
Really? Well, you know what? I'm going to have to start watching every dime too. And I'm going to start by charging for those refills, especially from big spenders who come in here just for the iced tea.
Yeah. Okay. I got to figure some way to save money, man. I mean, prices keep going up. Food, taxes, utilities. I can't even go out anymore, man. I go out once a week with my dad. That's it.
Hey, that's because on Tuesdays, kids eat free.
They give me shit about it, too. I mean, I put stuff on the card, but then I'm into those damn banks again, you know?
Yeah. And don't forget last time they foreclosed on a bunch of people who were into them for too much. And buying food on credit can add up. I know.
You know, the gas prices pushed everything up higher, man. It sucked all the money right out of our economy. And you know what? When those oil prices went down, when they went up, the other ones didn't, man. They didn't.
Well, in fact, the price of ethanol went up in spite of farmer subsidies to grow the corn that makes it.
Wait, aren't we producing more oil than ever? So at least we can cut the ethanol out of the gas, so we only need to use corn for food. So the price of corn will come down.
Maybe the prices of honey bunches and oats will go down, since it's mostly all corn.
Oh yeah. Hey, maybe we'll be out honey bunches of oats at Thanksgiving again this year.
Guys, how about they put some money back into our pockets so we don't have to keep borrowing just to keep up with the cost of living. I mean, it seems like it's getting so much harder for me just to pay for stuff lately, just to buy stuff, man. And I'm not even buying anything new. Look, and you know what? And now with all this virus shit, I got to worry. And you know what? At the same time, these best utility companies, they're always paying their profits at our expense, like you were saying, Teach.
Yeah, losing ground, going further into debt, and nothing's really changed in our lives, except now everything's getting worse. It drives me crazy.
No, you know what? The only thing that's changing is we're getting charged for shit that we never ordered or we never even received. Dude, a few years ago, I noticed a strange charge on one of my phone bills, right? All you need to check this out because they're doing this shit to everybody, man. All right, $6 a month. They're calling this stuff a linebacker fee, man. Yeah, linebacker. Oh, yeah. The phone company got a football team. They're padding their defense and they're charging me for this shit now, right?
That's offensive.
You know what it is? Get this. It's insurance to say something in case something goes wrong inside my house, right? Never ordered it. My homeowners covers this stuff, by the way. I never ordered it. I never requested it, so I demanded that they take it out and they credit me for the 10 years they're charging me for this shit, man. Yeah, 10 years. And you know what they tell me? They refuse and they say, "Oh, well, it's not our fault. You should have checked your bills here."
So it was your responsibility to see if they were cheating on you?
Yeah, really. Yeah. Wow. Right. It's at the top of my bucket list to check out what they're doing, right? Oh, and get this now. They have the balls to say, oh, we can give you a 3-month credit. Yeah.
Well, with all the complaining you do about government regulation, I guess you finally saw the need for it.
Oh, yeah. And you remember what happened when I got the government regulators on the phone? What happened?
What?
They agreed with the phone company. They said it was my responsibility to check my bills for any mistakes or overcharges. Yeah, our responsibility. How nuts is that, man? How nuts?
Yeah, except when you take the $6 a month and multiply it by tens of millions of customers, with the government siding with regulated monopolies over us consumers. And why not? Don't forget, utility companies also collect taxes from the government.
Oh, listen to this. I pay $50 for the phone, yeah? They take another $35 in state and federal taxes, man. Yeah, all these other fees.
That's 70%.
70%, right? So 70%. So it's no surprise the government's always going to approve these rate hikes, right? Why? Because it comes back to more money for them. Yeah.
So maybe the government figures that if you start getting credit for the things that these companies sneak on, like pretty soon you'll catch on how much the government's actually stuck on.
Well, to them, it's just hidden taxes and fees we don't think about. And we won't know how much money these utility and the lobbyists spend on congressmen and their campaigns.
Business in bed with government.
Yeah, so keep in mind that those taxes and fees pay the regulators who are supposed to be protecting us. So the higher the bill, the more tax money they get from us.
Yeah. Oh, and get this. With all the complaining I do with these phone company people, yeah, they make a mistake. They forget to include me in next year's phone book. What? These people, they don't forget nothing, man. This past year I was 2 weeks late paying my bill, right? I've been paying these pricks 30 years in advance for the past 30 years. What do? They just shut off my service. They cut everything. And I got that bundle stuff, home phone, computer, all that shit. So you think having a heater electricity shut off is bad for you to survive, man. You try surviving without that stuff now. Today's phone, computer, everything. And then when you get Jesus.
Yo, don't have a heart attack, man.
They think it's going to give you a heart attack, really. And you know what? And if I didn't have a heart attack, who would with no service, man?
Phone company.
Of course, their advice would be to take 2 aspirin, pay your bill, and call us in the morning if you can.
Oh, man. Oh, and listen to this. The cell phone people, oh, they're no better. Listen to this act. While my service is cut, right? It's all shut off. Man, these people are charging for ordering ringtones and downloading hip-hop tunes from some company with a hamster. Who's it? Hamster. And you know what? Coincidentally, they're building a cell phone tower. Guess where, man? Right next to my freaking house. And are they actually trying to kill me? Seriously? No. Okay.
Not cool.
Getting at here is that with all this shit they're doing, the complaining and their disconnections, the radiation and all that crap, We got to try to show them that they can't do this shit that people don't get away with it, man. And I hate to say it, but I hope somebody down there has the balls to put that linebacker fee back on my bill one day. Yeah, let me open that bill up and see that there. You know why? Because it'll give me an excuse to vent out all my anger and rage. I'll take a sledgehammer and I'll break every fucking wall inside my house, man.
Listen, hey, don't ever think you can beat the phone companies. I mean, let me tell you how powerful they are. You know, did you hear how AT&T got caught ripping off their customers for over $300 million by actually sneaking stuff onto your bills that nobody ever used? Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, welcome to the club, sweetheart.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think happened, right? Well, the feds fined them $105 million. They stole $300 million and they get fined $105 million. So they stole, they get caught, and they even turned a nice profit. And do you think anybody went to jail?
Hey, do you think an average Joe would go to jail if he stole a phone?
Right.
Yeah. Listen, it's not just these phone companies. I mean, what about all those banks who foreclosed on all those folks? I mean, you had Wells Fargo. They got caught adding fees, doing the same thing that AT&T did, and nobody went to jail there.
Hey, do you know they actually sent a guy to jail that spent money that the bank mistakenly credited to his account?
Well, and then you had Wachovia Bank, right? They got caught laundering $378 billion with these drug cartels in Mexico. Then they get fined $110 million. As that money went to laundered money, went to buy such things as airplanes to transport 22 tons of cocaine.
Wait, did you say they laundered 378 billion with a B and only got fined 110 million with an M?
Yeah, and that's tons with a capital T. And that was just from one bank that got caught. I mean, so much money leaves our country for drugs.
Yeah, and a lot of misery comes in and no one goes to jail.
Yeah, they said that if they had sent these high-level employees from these major banks to prison for this stuff, that it would cause the stock market to crash. And you know they could never take that chance.
Too big to jail.
Are you kidding me? There are kids in prison for selling 2 ounces of pot.
Yeah, and Eric Gardner got killed for selling Lucy's, single cigarettes. Justice has a price tag.
Oh, yeah. And then Wells Fargo, they turn around and buy Wachovia with the money that they get from TARP.
TARP? Wait. That was that bailout money the government gave to help banks survive. Our money. So they used it to buy a corrupt bank and nobody went to jail. Oh my, no wonder we're so far in debt.
Well, include big government in there too. Look at how much they get away with without going to jail.
Yeah, but if you were Trump's guy, you'd had a special prosecutor causing you to spend your life savings to prove that the, White Russian someone overheard you say you were waiting at the bar for was a drink.
Listen, you can tell how much control those have in government. We can't even question their decisions. I mean, with Congress investigating this wasteful spending, they asked the head of the GSA what his name was. He was so arrogant, he took the fifth. He refused to admit who he was.
What? If I was in Congress, I would have held him in contempt and put his ass in jail for not showing up since we didn't know who the guy was sitting there.
How come these people are still working?
Well, they get away with it because Congress is more involved with the politics of government than its operation. And we get distracted by the news. And don't forget, we were all focusing on the Gulf of Mexico oil spill when the head of the GSA was in Vegas spending $800,000 of our money renting clown costumes.
Clown costumes?
Clown costumes. Yes. And hiring a psychic who should have been able to predict eventually the American public would find out that they wasted all that money.
Yeah, and you can't blame us for what news the media covers or those government decisions. These haven't been acts of God or caused by nature. These are acts of Congress, presidents, governors, and mayors causing these problems that all could have been solved, but they made the choice not to. Listen, think about it this way. If Congress decided we needed a balanced budget, we'd have a balanced budget.
Yeah, but they just keep deciding to spend our means giving bailouts to corporations and banks that are screwing us. So we've gone further into debt.
Yeah, and if they decide to get rid of the hundreds of billions of fraud and waste in healthcare, we would have had affordable healthcare for everyone. I mean, that's if they decide we're going to have healthcare anymore with all the money we're going to be losing by closing down all these businesses.
Yeah, but you know what they did decide? That they're going to give themselves pay increases, free medical care, better pensions, and work out deals to give jobs to their families and friends.
Selling out their votes for campaign donations, dinners, and golf, and stock tips while we're losing our jobs, our homes, and our children's future.
Yeah, and then they got us thinking it's out of their control. Lying piece of crap. One lie after another.
Yeah, like when Bush and his cronies were telling us everything was great when we were in a recession, and Obama and his geniuses lied about spending our way out of it.
Yeah, well, pretty soon Obama brought us more debt than any other president in history, with George Bush a close second, and now Trump catching up, throwing money at trying to end an economic cure for this virus.
And where did all these stupid advisors with these costly recommendations and solutions to all these presidents even come from?
They're from the same gene pool like all those kids we knew in elementary school. Remember those kids? Yeah. Well, through a miracle, some of them are running our country. I mean, do you guys remember how goofy they were? Yeah, yeah, okay, fine. We were all kind of goofy at some point. But hey, do you remember them in middle school and then in high school?
And as it turns out, our former 3 presidents were the kids who were doing drugs in the parking lot. Remember those kids?
Yeah, the ones who were never going to make anything of themselves. How'd that happen?
You know, I bet Trump never did any drugs.
Trump probably wore a suit to school and got picked up by his dad's chauffeur, who pointed out how the future presidents in the parking lot were going nowhere.
Yeah, but it wasn't that they were just doing drugs, but they also went against the law and didn't get caught. You learn lessons when you get caught.
You also can't run for president if you get caught.
Yeah, but it's okay if you lie if you don't get caught.
Yeah, but they thought they were above the law, special, different from the rest of us, you know? And that's not a problem for them, but it's a problem for us.
And it's not just that they think that they're above a law, it's that we let them be.
Because those we elect are from the choices the parties give us. And 95% of those who win are the ones who spend the most money, from lobbyists, special interest groups, PACs, and super PACs, who expect to get paid back for their contributions.
Paid back. Hey, it'd be nice if we got paid back for our vote. Have them represent our interests for a change.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we better start by getting a lot more people involved. Hey, Nature Boy, whatever those people over there at the community leaders who were all fired up at that meeting of yours, hope they didn't listen to the government and go home scared to question how our economy's being destroyed without firing a single shot and how to handle this infectious virus.
Well, Captain America, we invited them to come over. You know, I'll call over there and find out what happened.
Look, we have some important decision to make, and Joe's take on how we can amend the Constitution and take our country back, I think it'll work.
Yeah? Yeah? What? That couldn't have happened.
What?
They arrested these 2 women at the meeting from Flint for inciting a riot, and no one knows where they were taken.
Are you kidding me?
Uh-huh. And others were told to go home and not to go to any meetings. I mean, that eventually everyone's got to be quarantined until the virus is controlled. And they got the sheriff out looking for the guy who was yelling about starting a revolution.
Oh, tell him to piss off.
You know, I'm going to go and head over there and find out what's going on.
You'll be careful what you tell them, okay?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You know, they got everybody intimidated, all the while taking away our liberties and confining us, like I said before, without firing a shot. You know, this is some pretty serious shit happening now.
You know, maybe it's time we started thinking about that revolution you were talking about at the meeting.
Oh, easy, man. I'm just thinking out too loud, okay? Okay.
Well, I think I better head over to report on what happened.
Yeah, and I can get a whole bunch of college students to start that revolution like Bernie did with social media. I'll get some right away.
Hold on. Everyone hold on. Just calm down. Just pull down those window shades and put that close sign on the door. Let's wait until they get back so we know what's going on. We don't need to be attracting any attention to what we're doing and who's here.
Maybe we should be attracting some attention because according to you guys, we need to be changing the way that we're running the country right now. And I think we need to turn to social media like Bernie did.
I think we need to turn out the lights until they get back.
You know, the way this virus thing's playing out, Bernie should have stayed in the race. Nobody's going to be working, and those crooks in government will be in control, giving us what we need just to live. Bernie's America.
Yeah, what a shame. He was going to be able to help a lot of people.
Yeah, kind of ironic when you think about all the complaining people did about how much all his dreams were going to cost. And now we're probably going to be spending a lot more just trying to get back on our feet.
Yeah, and after all that, he folded like a cheap suit again.
Dude.
Yeah, no lining, folds easy.
Oh, wait, a pink slip and now a cheap suit? Any other clothing references I should know about? You wonder why nobody understands what you're talking about, weirdo.
Sounds like what we got here is a failure to communicate.
Shh. Come on, let's take a break and lay low so our retired buddy here can go relieve himself. The rest of you can go maybe move your cars and put some money in those meters so the government doesn't tow them. But hey, don't let anybody know we're here, and don't take too long. See you back here in about 10 minutes.
Got it.
Break.
Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break and let everybody put their money in the parking meters and relieve themselves, and come back in about 10 minutes, and we'll start with this Act 2, which is going to see some solutions. Okay, see you in about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Reporting from a downtown location, the two women who came from Flint, Michigan to speak at the EPA meeting at the community center, whose children were hospitalized due to lead in the water, were detained by government officials for calling a nationwide disruption of the government, as the EPA representatives told all the other attendees that they should stay in their homes and further quarantine. Details will follow as they come in.
Oh, sounds like you all got out of there just in time.
Yeah, and welcome telling us we had to stay home too.
Okay, everybody's gone except for the nurse who was arguing with the feds. I don't know if they're holding her or she's holding them. All I heard was her yelling about the medical effects of lead in the water and the lack of test kits for the coronavirus. You know, I just ran out of there before they saw me. Figured I'd better just get back, and brought a few of the attendees who were still talking with me in the parking lot.
How the hell does shit like this happen?
That's why we didn't have an angry mob here tonight. They ran off all the bunch of pissed off people.
Yeah, well, we're going to need to find a lot more of those angry people. We're going to be all fight back against all this government and corporate corruption. And now intimidation, it's not even allowing us to question what they're doing.
Well, those of us who were in Sanders' campaign used social media to provide a delivery system to get people involved.
You mean sending messages out on like this Facebook?
It's Facebook. Facebook.
Yeah, the Facebook. Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah. The Twitter, the Instagram, the Snapchat. But do you know what? For now on, let's just refer to it all as the internet.
Yeah, I go on that Google every day.
Google.
That's what I said. Google.
Oh boy, does he live in a cave?
Yeah, times
Look at
have
him.
changed. I mean, our campaign for liberty began on horseback and evolved to the expanses and expenses of newsprint and TV. And now we're wireless. I mean, think of all the possibilities, guys.
Back then, Sanders got as far as he did with 6 million Facebook followers. That's where he got his donors, his volunteers, his voters, and where we could still get some of the people we need since he dropped out of the presidential race.
What? Now that the cheap suit folded his campaign again?
Well, you think it's really funny, but the reason he folded the first time was because he got screwed over by the Democratic Party and Hillary.
So that's where the collusion was.
Yeah, exactly. The only issue they were concerned with was getting Hillary elected. They left us and our issues out in the cold when they forced them out.
And I bet half of Bernie's supporters didn't even vote for Hillary in the general election.
Yeah, there was polling that indicated approximately 10% of Sanders supporters voted for Trump. So that would have made him the winner.
And might make him the winner again, now that the party and the media screwed Bernie again.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost exactly the same thing. The press pushed Biden into a scenario of having enough delegates and made it seem like Bernie didn't even have a chance, as the party talked the other candidate into supporting Biden.
Yeah, Bernie was still running for president to present issues that no one else wanted to, and he knew there was no way they would let him win until he almost did again.
Kind of the same thing with Trump until he did.
And then Biden forgot about our issues again and picked Harris, leaving Bernie, Warren, and the progressives outside looking in again. And nobody's talking about our issues.
Yeah, but this time, you're all going to the polls and none of you are thinking about voting for Trump, except for this guy. Besides, Biden's going to owe all of you.
Yeah, but we all know that Biden isn't in charge.
And Trump and Sanders were running against a government that was controlled by political parties and insiders who had the power to shove our lives to places we don't want to go and made promises they never had to keep.
As voters were rebelling against a government that existed for the benefit of corporate bosses who are running for the country.
And we just gotta hope that Bernie's people understand that there's a chance that those controlling Biden will listen to us. Well, that won't happen with Trump.
Well, for us, getting an outsider elected, it was a good first step. but all we ended up was watching Trump fight the Democrats in Congress every minute of every day to take our minds off of what we elected them to do.
Yeah, what do they really do? I mean, they play follow the leader. The leaders decide everything and they do nothing, but everyone's given their vote every once in a while to stand behind their leaders to show how important they are back at home to their folks.
You know, if the leaders are going to run the country anyway, why not just have the leaders serve and the rest of Congress just stay home and talk to each other through that internet stuff you guys do?
More in line with what the founding fathers envisioned.
Yeah, have a president and a vice president and a speaker, the majority and the minority leader in both houses stay in Washington, and everybody else gets on an office back home, like a home office.
Yeah, and then they wouldn't have to worry about catching coronavirus from each other.
Right.
And this is the perfect time to force them to do it.
Come on, they'd never let that happen.
Yeah, because then we'd figure out how many billions are being wasted by having everyone socialize in Washington.
Yeah, and having them all stay away from all of those lobbyists.
Yeah. Bring them home where they belong.
Whoa! What a great idea for someone who has no clue what computers do now or are capable of in the future.
Yeah, but listen, it may be a little too outrageous to expect them to go along with, especially with all this virus crap going on now, keeping them in Washington with a feeding frenzy, telling them as much as they want to spend to tell us it's going to save the country. We should probably wait until we get into that convention of states that I told you about before.
Yeah, we need to make some big changes. But you know what? You're right. It's too big for now. And if we talk about it, it gets all the attention in their opposition, and we don't get to focus on what we need to. So can we all agree? Let's save it for later, okay?
Okay, we need to focus on important things and make sure that we get our liberties back so eventually we can make our country ours again.
You need to focus on how they got away with changing your way of life without your consent. I mean, with this political bias of the media as your only communication with what's going on.
Yeah, the government that's supposed to protect us controls us, like intimidating those people at the meeting over there and threatening to lock us up in our homes and take away our rights of speech, assembly, religion, and a whole bunch of other freedoms we don't even know about yet.
You know, you're right. And it's a layer of control that they were using all along to violate our rights that we didn't even think about. You know, it makes you wonder not only how it got this far, but how we let it go on for this long. Little by little, year by year, they push us farther and farther until we have to fight back. And now with this virus, they pushed us against the wall, just waiting for us to make a mistake as innocent bystanders with a legal liability, like those attendees being questioned at that meeting.
What do you mean liability?
Well, okay. They make sure that you could always be liable because you agreed to it by not fighting back. So little by little, when we don't complain, they take away more and more of our rights. And pretty soon, we're locked in our homes, can't go to church, can't go to meetings to talk about our rights. I mean, those attendees better head home and watch what they say because they're probably being monitored right now for their complaining.
It sounds like communism to me.
But like you said, what are we liable for?
Okay, well, back when our lives seemed normal, if you witnessed an accident, your boss or something went wrong, all of a sudden you're told to appear for a deposition with an attorney asking you all kinds of questions, no matter what you're being deposed for, like those police can do. And like we just saw the Congress and special prosecutors do as well.
Oh, I've been there. They can ask any questions they want.
Yeah, you're allowed your own attorney, but how many average Joes has an attorney waiting around to appear at a deposition or the money to pay for one?
And they can ask you under oath if you knew if your boss was having an affair with his secretary or if you've taken supplies from the work office. You know, remember, if you lie under oath, it's not only about other people, it becomes about you. Just ask Paul Manafort.
Holy shit. You know, first it was don't ask, don't tell, right? Then it was if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
I'm not saying with these new laws, we're screwed no matter what we do, yeah?
But I don't understand how they force us to do this if we don't want to.
Like I said, it's little by little, and they get you to agree you're not going to fight back. And then they move into the next violation of your rights.
Yeah, it's like when they allow a collection agency to demand we pay a bill we don't know. It's just something else we get forced to do that's against our constitutional rights.
Oh, yeah. Listen to this. My dentist. This guy tells me I still have an insurance credit left, right?
Yeah.
Then he goes ahead and he pulls out the wrong tooth, man. Yeah, friggin' tooth. Then he goes, oops, my bad. You didn't have the credit. You should have checked. Just like that linebacker shit. Now I owe this guy the money, right? I don't pay him. He's got these collection agencies calling me. These people are telling me that I'm not covered for this guy pulling the wrong tooth. So then if I don't deal with them, I got to wake up on a phone call every morning, huh?
Well, until they decide to file a lien against your property or a lawsuit against you, that if you hire an attorney will probably cost more than the bill you owe.
A collection agency calls me every day because they say I owe a $10 copay from a doctor visit that I paid and said they would ruin my credit rating. Calls every day for $10.
$10. How come these people don't have to go to court to get permission before they harass us, huh?
Yeah, that's my point. Who made them judge and jury? And how do we ever change a system that's so far out of control?
You can't. You just can't. Collection agencies hire lobbyists to make sure there are no changes to the laws affecting their industry.
Oh, it's another reason we got to get rid of these pieces of crap politicians who let these rules exist all these years because some lobbyist takes them to play golf.
Yeah, we don't even know how this stuff got there to begin with, but we know how they got to take away everyone's constitutional freedoms right under their noses, even with the threats of weapons scattered around the country that was supposed to be a defense against something like this happening.
That's why I said we need a government we can trust.
Yeah, but the government's got everything covered, not only by making and enforcing the rules, but they also invented the calendar and the clock, telling us not just what to do, but when to do it. So now, if we don't, we're in big trouble, even though it may not make any sense to us.
Yeah, like that stupid daylight savings time, right? I don't practice that. To me, it's the same time all the time.
So doesn't that mess with everything you do?
No. It's perfect now since I'm retired. There was that one time I got jammed up for the court here and I was an hour late. But stupid curfew stuff, and I got to figure out what kind of clock they're on. This virus is screwing everything up big time, man.
Kind of strange how we started following all this stuff, even though it's not in our best interests, yeah?
But like I said, it started with the little things.
Like the government closing on weekends.
Yeah, using Sabbath days to get days off.
Hey, if they can do all that, why don't they just add a day to the week, yeah? Sure. We can get more stuff done on that day. Yeah, like 8 days a week, like the Beatles said.
You're gonna lay off that hose water, my friend. But they can change stuff to make our lives easier.
Hey, right now, the most important thing for our economy is not the convenience of government. It's workers who make money producing and then buying stuff. And right now, a lot of us aren't going to be producing or buying. Governments sometimes forget that it's consumer demand that runs our economy, and you can't demand without money. And just think how much more production could occur in our country if we could all deal with the government when we want to.
And we better start thinking about that right now.
Yeah, hey, like have the government and courts open weekends and evenings.
We need to figure out who made these rules and for whose benefit.
Yeah, like my generation has time to worry about how you guys let all this stuff happen. You know, when you were my age, you had a chance. What do I have? I go to school all day. I work all night. And for what? To eventually make 25 grand a year as a teacher?
Oh, thanks.
Sorry, no offense, but it doesn't matter to us when you guys lost control or whether you remember how we got here, when right now we're facing an uncertain future out of our control.
At least you have a future. I mean, this is our future.
And technology, my God, look what they're doing with robots and artificial intelligence.
And driverless cars. I mean, take away all those driving jobs. How many people drive for a living? And now they're talking about planes without pilots.
With the planes that's still missing and the others just falling out of the sky. You know what? It probably wouldn't even make a difference.
It's probably why you don't hear about any hijackings anymore, too.
Yeah, and they're probably going to require some more helmets on planes soon.
Yeah.
That height, that's not going to help, man. Those helmets going to be wearing us for protection.
You know, I went to a new Amazon automatic grocery store that had no employees, and machines check what's in your cart, and shelves are stocked by robotic stackers. I mean, where do all these people even find work?
Seriously.
Hey, what do you think would happen if I put something in my pocket, by mistake, like?
The machine shoots you, but by mistake.
Yeah. And what? Pretty soon, robots will be taking over most of our manufacturing jobs because it's cheaper labor than us.
Yeah, as we buy most of that robotic equipment from other countries, taking away even more of our jobs.
So we lose our jobs to robots made in other countries that manufacture stuff that we can't buy because we don't have a paycheck anymore, which also means we're not paying taxes to run the government.
Huh. You know what? They're gonna have to tax the robots.
Did anybody think about what that means? Did any of these people we elected think about that? There's no plan.
Well, it sounds like that is the plan. But I guess we could always go back to watch more football to keep us entertained.
What if the players become robots too?
Well, then MIT will be national champions.
Oh,
But no more problems with concussions.
Or pensions.
Or kneeling at the singing of the anthem.
Yeah, do you see where this is going?
Hopefully they lower the ticket prices.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I spend all day telling a robot that I'm not a robot by identifying crosswalks in a picture. I mean, we've gone crazy.
That's why we need to make sure our kids get an education so they don't all end up being satisfied watching robots on TV.
But getting an education's expensive and comes with a boatload of debt and takes ages to qualify for a job. Let alone living.
Well, yes. So those things aren't just new to your generation. We all have trouble paying our bills.
You know, senior citizens have been having to make decisions between medication and the bills for years. And can you imagine what it's going to be like now?
Yeah, and some have even lost their homes. So we're all in the same boat. Only difference is that some are losing what they gained while the others, including you guys, haven't gained yet.
If you mean I have less to lose, you're right. You have assets and money, and all I have is debt. You know, before they closed our school, our econ class was talking about how different things are back then and they are today, kind of like money then and now. And money back then provided for the essentials, but like now money is sort of like a measure of success and power, kind of like a thing of virtue to a thing of influence. And it helped make more of it whichever way it was used.
People still talk about how our country would have never prospered if greed wasn't driving the economy.
But I can tell you there are a lot of us who aren't benefiting from that greed anymore.
None of us would have jobs if it wasn't for greed.
Duh, if you invest money to build a business, of course you're going to create jobs. But what I'm saying is it's excessive greed that causes excessive profit with workers making less.
Yeah, you're right. But what makes profits excessive is when the CEO of Walmart gets paid 1,000 times more than their average employee because he keeps profits high by keeping workers' wages low so that we taxpayers have to bail them out with food stamps and health care. Now that's what you call corporate socialism.
But no one complains because that's business.
He's trying to pass a bill that charges these companies to get our money back.
Come on. Sanders would never do that.
Oh, it's true. It just shows how a socialist can get mad at a bunch of capitalists for using socialism to get rich.
What did you say?
Believe it when I see
Hey,
it.
we've been talking about how we let business steal from us. So who's to say we shouldn't also increase their profits by using our taxes to pay for their employees to survive?
And you wonder why we have no money to pay our bills every month, right?
Well, it all started when politicians started listening to business and forgot to represent us.
Rich get richer and jobs pay less.
Oh, how you doing? Here she is.
Hey, yes, there she is. Let's get this lady a drink. Sorry about him, but are you doing okay?
I am now. I just need to relax after arguing with those government thugs who think they can tell us that we can't question what they're doing. They actually arrested people complaining about this government takeover who refused to leave the center. Something about no more meetings allowed. I guess I'm kind of exempt being in healthcare.
No, they were just trying to shut us up. That's why a bunch of us left and came over here after they tried to stop us from talking.
Well, you started yelling no taxation without representation, and then something about the phone bill, and then your prostate. They saw it was getting out of hand, literally.
That wasn't me.
Yeah, sure. Well, they're looking for you. And from now on, when you stick the Q-tip in, stop at resistance. Anyway, I hope all of you are planning to continue to fight back against this stupid government and not let them take the easy way out with this virus mess by telling us the most important defense is to be quarantined without even identifying who's positive.
And what good does it do to get tested and they have to wait a long time to get the result?
And how many people can you infect walking around waiting for the results?
Did they arrest any more people?
Oh, hey, you're the reporter who was there. No, there were no more arrests, but they did let those two women go who were talking about causing a national disruption, since anyone doing that now would be arrested anyway because the rules in place for the virus. But don't forget, they had all of us sitting 6 feet apart at the meeting. And when your group got angry and left, they were threatening you with arrest if you got too close to each other while you were leaving. And you know more restrictions are coming. Yep, the guys you put in power are now making the rules.
Oh, we were just talking about how we're being played by fools by the very politicians who use us for our votes and then discard us. And now it looks like they've not only taken away our liberties, but have disrupted the entire economy with this virus solution.
Oh, yeah, you got that right. We're talking about how they're having everybody stay in their homes, separate from each other, even family members, and keeping these restrictions on, even for those who have been cured. And they're still closing the parks and recreational facilities. I mean, these places are good for people's health. And then putting people in quarantine as soon as they step off a plane from another state. And oh, my personal favorite, encouraging people to report those who violate the rules by calling the police.
So we've gone from helping your neighbor to spying on your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like communism, like Russia.
Not
Yeah.
Germany.
A whole new morality kicks in when the government's competing with us citizens for the control of our lives.
We used to hear them offer that moral soundbite rather than having to keep giving your neighbor a fish. We should teach them how to fish. Well, now that's even out of the window if there are no fish.
And a lot of you folks would rather believe in false hope and wait around until there are fish. You guys can do that. We can't.
You know what? That sounds fishy.
Well, who said we're waiting? We're talking about changing things now so that you aren't left with the future out of your control.
Well, education's our future. It's just that now even greed drives those decisions. Tuition should be going down, not up. Problem is, it costs so much. You have to be well off to have a chance of being well off. And since we're the reason these colleges exist, they need to be working for us to make it easier for us to afford to go. Like using Kindle to get free textbooks and not forcing us to have to buy a new edition of Shakespeare. And we should only be paying for the classes that we need to get a job and shouldn't be charged for all the extra stuff like athletics.
Yeah, and why should coaches get paid more than teachers?
You can hire a Nobel Prize winning economics teacher for a lot less than some football coach who loses all his games.
Hey, remember how you older folks used to protest all kinds of stuff back in your day? I think it's about time we started protesting education and how much of the government's money is being wasted.
If there is any more money left to waste.
Well, I can tell you those congressmen you elected will throw away that new money spending just like they wasted that stimulus money from before on educational jobs and studies at schools. There were a few strange ones I came across, like one in California for $1.9 million studying ants.
What? Did she say studying ants?
Yes, I said ants. And that didn't add a thing to education or the economy.
Except for probably the huge amount spent on alcohol that the researchers had to drink to get through the study.
Yeah. Well, then I came across two in particular that were incredible. Okay, one was for $144,000 for researchers at Wake Forest University to actually see how monkeys react under the influence of cocaine that they actually administer themselves. Right?
Hey, that's probably how they get the storyline for Planet of the Apes.
And I wouldn't be surprised if it was the monkeys who put in the order for the cocaine.
Yeah, well, there was this other one for $357,000 to the University of Kentucky to actually see how that drug enhanced the sex drive of Japanese quail. Now, I've never even heard anyone complain or ask why.
Hey, did anyone check and see if any of those researchers are messing around with some of those quails?
Oh, gross.
You're nasty. What is wrong with you?
What in the storm, guys?
Okay, wait a minute. Can we just acknowledge that this really happened? Somebody came up with the idea of spending over $350,000 to give cocaine to quail, and administrators agreed. This involved people in charge of a university and Congress.
Yeah, and since it's money that should be going towards stimulating our economy to create jobs, I think I'd want to know, especially since they disguise it as going towards education.
And why waste $500,000 screwing up the perfectly good lives of quail and monkeys while we should be worried about the drugs that are coming into this country?
And why do these schools have such a fascination with cocaine anyway?
Well, I bet somebody in the government mentioned that it was a stimulant. And some of these bozos figured it had something to do with our economy, right?
You need to do a drug test on folks who come up with these ideas.
Well, being a nurse in a hospital full of drugs, I can tell you someone needs to monitor this campaign after it's been purchased for these studies. We can only imagine a bunch of monkeys getting pissed off because someone's gotten into their stash.
We need to put those congressmen and administrators out of office for taking care of the recreational needs of a bunch of birds and monkeys instead of us students who they represent. And, maybe part of Bernie's plan was to stop that waste. And just that money was supposed to provide us an opportunity. How the heck do they get away with what they do?
Well, because they always seem to get us to focus on something other than the practicality of our reality. And us average folks who work hard for a living are having trouble figuring out what's going on anymore, whether in our personal lives or now in our country's economy. Right now, I don't know if my business is going to be going up or down, or will it even open after this virus foul up? But to plan for the future, I need to know, are we heading for another recession, or are we already in one?
Oh, without a doubt, already in one.
You're probably the only restaurant in town that's still able to be open. And that's because you've got a closed sign in the window and the drapes drawn down.
Well, I kind of lost track whether we're allowed to open or not since they keep changing the rules.
And we all just moved our cars to another block.
And the employees of all those closed businesses around the country know it's a recession because they've been filing for unemployment.
Yeah, well, my reality is a recession when you all lose your jobs, and a depression when I lose mine. And I know I go into a depression when I think we're in a recession.
Oh, come on, man. What did you just say? Oh, man.
That he's in a depression. And the lazy economist rule about determining a recession using 2 consecutive failing quarters now gets changed to one big weekend. But how would we have ever known if we were in a recession anyway, since we're buying corporation stuff on credit? That's why the stock market goes up along with our personal debt. And it goes down when we lose our jobs and don't have any credit.
And now we don't have any idea what they're doing with the economy.
Like, remember years ago when they started spending that stimulus money to create new jobs? I had visions of businesses sprouting up all over the place, providing all kinds of jobs and customers. Don't forget, back then we were talking over $8 trillion. Did I just say trillion again? I mean, it's just amazing that just a few years ago, I hardly ever used the word billion.
Yeah. Sounds like a drop in a bucket now.
Yeah, we then found out they use that stimulus money that's supposed to create jobs to bail out a lot of big corporations to make sure they don't lay off workers.
Sounds like they might be doing the same thing now.
Yeah.
Another reason the stock market went up when our finances were going down.
Yeah, and you better believe that's what they're going to be doing again, spending trillions to get us out of this economic hole they got us in by bailing out those corporations who should be all fend for themselves, while us workers and businesses are going to suffer because our voices aren't heard.
And you know that a corporation can lose millions and still be in business and even have their stock go up. But if I lose one stinking dollar, I'm out of business.
Yeah, and I heard that if we did bail the corporations out with that government, the government would demand part ownership, with Trump saying our citizens deserve it for lending them money.
Now that's really socialism.
Socialism is like a nude beach, man. It sounds real cool until you get there. I know.
Yeah, okay, that's too much information about you and your beaches. And yes, I agree. It's like the government is always taking the easy way out. So they don't have to recognize and solve problems. It's like they're lazy. Do you know there are inmates collecting unemployment? And even people working for the city government in Washington, D.C. are receiving unemployment checks while they're still working and right under their noses.
That was before DC legalized pot. I'm sure things will now improve.
And how many times do we say they've got to be stoned?
I heard right after it got legalized in Colorado, some guy caused a pileup on the freeway, swerving to miss a perfectly formed pine tree hanging from his rear view mirror.
Yeah, that was crazy. But okay, hey guys, I gotta know, is there any truth to that story that Russia was trying to influence our election? Huh? Yes? No? Maybe? Well, hey, they may have helped legalize pot though.
Well, maybe that's why it passed in DC.
Why would they do that?
To bring our productivity way down by causing people to take a lot longer to perform tasks with a lot more thought. Yeah, come on.
Right, by getting us to legalize our own drug usage. Oh, and I heard that the Netherlands was actually spying on the Russians, and then they told us the Russians were trying to influence our elections.
Okay, but why do we never hear about Russia or China thinking about legalizing pot, even though it may calm all their dissent?
They try to all bring us down without firing a shot. And they might have done it now with this virus.
But man, we've gotten so soft they could probably take us out with a gluten bomb now.
Well, you know, China is the leading supplier of fentanyl, the opioid that killed 70,000 of us last year. Compare that to the 50,000 killed in Vietnam.
Yeah, Trump almost got them to agree to stop sending it over here.
Could save 70,000 lives if he included it in his trade deal.
You know, it's kind of like slavery. I mean, if there's always a demand, there's going to be someone to supply it.
Yeah, China tried to influence the trade deal by limiting our access to antibiotics that we no longer produce, that they now control. And this is penicillin that our troops use.
That should be considered an act of war.
Well, China is the largest global supplier of the active ingredients needed to make prescription drugs, over-the-counter products, and vitamins.
Yeah, and under the direction of the Chinese government, their companies practice price fixing. Chinese companies cut their vitamin C prices in half so companies couldn't compete. And then after China controlled the market, its companies raised prices by 600%.
Yeah, tainted heparin shipped from China was responsible for killing people in all of the countries receiving it. As our drug companies complain to the FDA about how unfair it is that they're constantly being inspected while businesses producing drugs in China are hardly ever inspected.
Now they shipped us a virus.
Yeah, eventually we're not going to be able to get off the couch and roll and go to work anymore because we're either going to be too stoned or dead.
well, then the government won't have to worry about complaining from all those people who can't find jobs and stop looking, and those who have jobs but can't survive on minimum wage.
Well, before we reach that point of our total failure to function as a country, they need to quit kicking the can down the road and figure this stuff out. That's why we elected them.
Well, you know, those of us in the private sector think of new ideas all the time. That's how we go in business and stay in business.
Well, maybe we should privatize the entire government.
Well, if they can't figure out how to change a bad system, maybe those of you in business should tell them how.
Okay, as an example, like, unemployment compensation has been the same for years. All they've changed is increasing the number of weeks that someone can receive it. That's it.
I guess if I was on it, I wouldn't complain.
But that's a lazy cop-out. You don't create jobs by giving people a reason not to want to work.
Well, so why not use that money to increase the demand for employees by giving the money to us small businesses to hire and train the unemployed and create new jobs? Millions of us small businesses could absorb all the employed who want to work. I mean, we already employ over 50 million.
You know, a famous economist said that the difficulty lies not in the new ideas, but in escaping from the old ones.
And if my business could get $300 to hire a worker, I'd be willing to kick in another $200 to get an employee I could train to help my business grow and have a job after their unemployment runs out.
Wow. You know, that's a terrific idea, especially now with all those unemployed I mentioned before. It's going to be the most we've ever had. And your plan not only helps those who lost their jobs, but businesses who need to grow to pay their bills because of the virus. And it helps the government save money by becoming more efficient instead of just sending people money and increasing the national debt.
Yeah, by not having the government spend all that money on workforce training would save a hell of a lot of money, like billions.
Yeah, but the folks that represent us in Washington, they can't figure this stuff out on their own, man. You know, I think they're just too afraid to try, really.
Good, definitely bringing it up in my econ class.
Just make sure I get the credit.
Of course. And, you know, when you have more money coming in, maybe you'll consider giving your minimum wage employees a raise.
Hello, that extra money that the government could give me was to hire those who were unemployed. But I guess I could always cut your hours to make up for your raises.
Well, I guess I'll just go out and get another job.
And I could hire a robot to do your job, bringing that minimum wage to 0.
So you want me to be homeless? You know, if I received a raise, I would spend that money in our community and contributing more to taxes and helping our economy, just like our teacher friend says.
Hey, all this arguing about things you can't change goes nowhere. What we need to do is...
Wait, I disagree. I think that both sides of this issue make sense. We just need to figure out a way to get it to work. Maybe since the government decides how much the minimum should be, why not let the government pay for the increases?
You're right again. Those small businesses that they're forcing to close will be on the verge of failing once this virus scare is over. And add the pressure of a rising minimum wage, that could cause a lot of them to collapse.
Yeah, when the government says something's gotta be done, they need to bite the bullet to do it by paying for raises. They can give us businesses tax credits, balancing the cost of the wage increases.
Wait, you mean we can get a raise without it hurting the business?
Yep.
This will get me an A for sure.
Yeah, of course. Then these people we elect will have to make sure the government runs more efficiently to pay for it. Just like small businesses and the rest of us have to do every day, the government forces business to raise their minimum. So yeah, why not let government pay for the increase?
All these years, they've been thinking that we can do it no matter what the cost. Now we need to tell them that they need to do it from now on, especially now. But I'm just a restaurant owner trying to pay bills and balance a checkbook. These governors and members of Congress are going to determine if I get to stay in business.
Congress? Don't be expecting anything from them. We've had Congress for 240 years already. And you know what? You're right. Every year, less gets done for us and more for them and their friends. And the problem is we forgot we have a constitution, guys, a vote and a voice that needs to speak out.
Yeah, and the government tells us to what? Be quiet and that the sky will fall and people will be thrown out on the streets if we try to make any changes.
The Congress should be the first place to look if we're really trying to save money.
And after 240 years, our presidents act like dictators. We have a Congress that's inept and corrupt, and the courts are as political and self-serving as the other two.
Yeah, and we don't even vote them out of office. I mean, it looks like we're going backwards. Think about it. At one point, we were at long last given our chance to take control. Blacks and women's were finally able to vote, and that should have changed everything. We added up to way over 50%, and that meant that 1% wasn't in charge of the 99% anymore because everyone could vote and decide the direction our country
Yeah, but those in power didn't want them to vote because it's about keeping power.
Yeah, but they resisted until the changes were forced on them. Don't forget, we had changed how our founding fathers viewed America. I mean, if it was up to them, only white Protestant males would be able to vote. No women, no Indians, no blacks, no Hispanics, no Asians, and no Catholics, and no Jews.
Guys, that's everybody in New York.
Yet they declared that all men are created equal. But what makes our country great is that we kept evolving. We keep making it better for every one of us. No matter what the issue is, individual liberties become our focus. Well, most of the time. I mean, I heard someone ask what they think the founding fathers would have said today if we asked them about gun control. You know what they'd say? Gun control? You know, how'd all these women in here get to vote?
Now we're losing our liberties again to those in control because we got distracted, like that frog in the pot.
Or the pot in the frog.
Come on, right? We can't let them take us backwards on doing everything that we've accomplished all these years. Look, I majored in history, and I do not want it repeating itself.
Or maybe there's just not enough of us remembering how unfair it used to be.
It wouldn't be as bad as this now.
Oh, it was, all right? It was a few rich, powerful elitists that had control and kept us separated, emphasizing our differences, as some states refused to recognize the constitutional rights of us racial minorities. I mean, even the all-knowing Supreme Court upheld that and other discrimination, as the federal government subtly created images by names that divided us. You know, knowing it was easier to send a savage to a reservation instead of a Native American.
Well, that's why they're going back to separating us by race, gender, ethnicity, and income again, to focus on how we're all different from each other, so we don't figure out how different we all are from where the government's taking us.
And if someone disagrees with us on one issue, they focus on that to keep us apart. Because sooner or later, we might actually find out we have other things in common, like now.
So, and it's all been done within they call the checks and balance of government?
But you'd think, assuming fairness and justice and the Constitution, us average folks would finally have our voices heard with the courts, especially that all-knowing Supreme Court. But I'm not so sure anymore.
You know, what's been amazing me since I began studying in the system of impartial Supreme Court is that so many rulings are divided 5-4. I mean, isn't that odd to anybody else? Wouldn't you think that determining what is divinely right and wrong would require a unanimous 9-0 vote?
Of course, politics doesn't allow for that to happen. And politics are as involved in the courts as the other two branches of government.
Just look at when they vote for a Supreme Court justice. It's almost always along party lines.
Oh, but especially when it's an issue like Obamacare. Do we actually think that judges are going to be impartial or even obey the law when they have personal stakes involved or refuse to disqualify themselves?
Right.
I mean, you've got Clarence Thomas's wife, who is lobbying for the healthcare industry, and Justice Kagan helping to pass Obamacare through the Congress for the president who appointed her to the court. One has the influence of a wife, the other the influence of a benefactor, each pulling on Obamacare in different directions. And how do you think they each voted? Kagan with the president and Thomas with the wife.
Yeah, and if those justices whose impartial rulings present the absolute determination of law, if they have a job or if their spouse needs to have a job involved in political decisions, then they need to recuse themselves or resign. I mean, don't you think it's honor enough to be appointed for life that maybe some sacrifice and integrity should be expected? I mean, who do these people think they are?
Hey, you know what? If they really need the extra money that bad, why don't their spouse go get a job at like a friggin' Wendy's or something? Be an average citizen, battle these powerful corporations, and try to raise a damn family at the same time too, huh?
Who knows? Maybe they would have voted against those super PACs.
Oh, and while we're dealing with these gods in black robes, how come they get to serve for life? I mean, it takes the politics out of the court? Come on. How long is long enough? And their appointment is just as political as anyone in office. They should have a 12-year time limit as well.
Right. An important position like that should have a beginning and end planned.
Yeah, the only one who plans it now is the judge. And some would say that Justice Ginsburg stayed too long, giving Trump another justice, when Obama could have made the choice.
And a lot of us thought the notorious RBG would last forever. And she was our woman icon for sure, man. She had no fear.
Oh, she was good, but not operating at full speed. You know, sometimes falling asleep during deliberations. Don't forget, she was pretty sick.
Yeah, she was in and out of hospitals. They knew she wasn't going to last. So for some, it should have been planned.
Yeah, it wasn't like Justice Scalia, who left our court and country in turmoil.
Yeah, well, and he died under unusual circumstances with a pillow over his head, as Bush had him passed over for the next Chief Justice of the court, even though it was his turn. So that's kind of strange.
Yeah, especially when it was Scalia who pushed for having state legislatives establish the Convention of States I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Article 5 to allow us to amend the Constitution with him himself saying it will liberate us from the tyranny of Congress.
Yeah, think about how that would change the power structure of our political system and the number of people and the billions of dollars it would affect.
Yeah, and I'm sure being passed over for Chief Justice, that wasn't going to shut him up.
Yeah, sounds like his end was planned.
Maybe we just have your boy Mueller investigated, huh?
Can't. He's busy investigating all those people who haven't paid their ripped up parking tickets in your neighborhood.
Hey, man.
Okay, you know, maybe these judges should be elected like everyone else. That way they'd be more concerned with our well-being than those who appointed them.
Well, we could try to do that at the convention.
Oh, you better get that to convention pretty quick. I mean, the Supreme Court with its Citizens United ruling now allowing for these political action committees to dominate campaign advertising with so much money that they control Congress with more influence than we have.
Yeah, major corporate and union PACs who might even have hidden foreign shareholders can spend as much as they want. So there goes our democracy.
Foreign in determining our own elections. Is that what we fought and bled for?
Yeah, and they're complaining about Russia?
Yeah. So some of these same corporations that are getting bailed out receiving stimulus money, like Wells Fargo, who then turned around and bought Wachovia and all its assets, they now have the power to control our elections.
Yeah, as we have to pay back the debt that we incurred for them.
Wait, I don't understand. So, it costs us to have someone else convince us who we're gonna vote for?
Yeah. The money we used to bail them out is now being spent by their super PACs to pay for TV commercials to convince us to vote for candidates who they're supporting.
So we'll be spending our money again for elections with the new bailouts they just passed? How could we have let this happen, man? I mean, it sounds like we're really getting trumped.
Oh, we're getting screwed and spent from both sides because we trust people who sound so much like who we are. And I used to be one of them before I wised up and realized as a nurse, these politicians were making me and my country sick. If you're a Republican, you're told the Democrats are the evil opposing team, bad for the country, and must be stopped at any cost. And Democrats, they're told the same thing about the Republicans.
Yeah, these political parties can't afford to let both sides of the aisle agree, since don't forget, they're big businesses that raise money off the dissent that they create.
Yeah, and as an independent, I get requests from both sides all the time to contribute to their cause to stop the other side from destroying our country. And of course, that money just goes to the funds for the operations of the party and not the candidates who are being funded by the industries they support.
And you wonder why nothing gets done? Those parties get candidates elected who then have to pay back those who supported the party.
Because big business contributes big money to the parties without considering solutions beneficial to us.
Like we wouldn't need the government controlling healthcare if people had the ability to afford it.
Yeah. You think healthcare is expensive now? Wait till it is free.
Okay, we need to figure out why the hospitals in our country have the highest costs and yet some of the highest fatality rates in the world, including infant mortality. Our country.
Wait, but according to studies, we have more medical technology than any other country.
Yes, and the most expensive. In my travels, what stood out to me the most was how some insurance companies here don't cover a lot of technology that people in need can't afford to pay for. MRIs in the United States are $1,500, and in Spain, $180.
$180. What the hell are they doing in Spain? Using a manual machine on a folding table, handheld?
No.
Yeah, right? And we're what? We're always treating some disease around the world like that Ebola stuff. Hell, we'll probably be the ones that cure this virus.
Which we do for free. But a knee replacement costs 50% more here than in any other country. And more Americans are going overseas for those procedures that cost $20,000 there and $30,000 here. And we have the highest use of prescription drugs tied to the highest prices.
Yeah, economics has a lot to do with it. And sometimes it becomes more about people making money than curing disease. You remember when George W. Bush pushed for Medicare Part D plan that gives senior most any drug they need for free? Now that was pure socialism.
Right. And the capitalism part of that is that it made his pharmaceutical company friends a fortune forever. And they spend over $300 million a year lobbying Congress to keep that fortune coming in.
Wait, so the former Republican president who called Bernie Sanders a socialist for wanting to give us college students an education was an even bigger socialist?
Yeah, I think Medicare Part D has spent well over $1 trillion.
So that could have brought us tuition and books.
Yeah, and the reason why it's so much is that Bush and his friends did not let the government negotiate prices with these drug companies.
What do you mean? They charge the government what they want?
Yeah, us taxpayers are footing the bill for drug companies' profits.
Yeah. Oh, and guess what, guys? They keep sending those whether you even need them or not. I got friends of mine, they're dead. They're still getting pills in the mail. Yeah.
And you know that with Medicaid, you can pay $1 for 240 opioid pills that you can resell on the black market for $4,000.
$1,000. Where can I get some of these pills? I just like an investment.
Sure.
Yeah, like I said before, you'll go to jail if you steal a phone.
It's the whole system that's complicated and corrupt. It's out of control.
Oh, you want to talk about out of control? Come visit me at the emergency room on my overnight shift. I can tell you, we don't have the luxury of time to think about what brings these people to visit us, except that they need quick medical help. But because of the political and the business decisions, we end up providing some really urgent, costly care for a broad range of illnesses, from the flu to broken bones, from a headache to a heart attack, and maybe an insect bite to a bullet wound. And the ER costs so much because we have to be prepared to save lives, whether someone comes in with a runny nose or a near-death emergency, which could be from the same virus bug affecting people differently. So remember, the pathogen can be carried on tiny respiratory droplets that fall as they're coughed or sneezed out, or it could be transmitted when we touch a contaminated surface and then touch our faces. So it could be that the way we receive it determines its strength. So we encourage the many, many people who come to see us to remember, and we take the time to ask them who and when and where they might have crossed paths with this bug, because without testing everyone, we've got to trace back to where they got infected.
Including those who aren't even citizens, but take the place of citizens in line.
Okay, that's because while we prioritize, we cannot neglect. So everybody gets seen, whether they're citizens or enrolled in healthcare or not.
Yeah, as businesses hire workers from across the border who need healthcare but don't pay the taxes that fund it.
That's why we need that wall.
To stop sick people from getting medical help.
No, we need entrances with people coming here legally so that corporations can't get cheap illegal laborers to increase their profits, while they and the worker don't pay taxes into an expensive emergency room system that we have to support.
Now that's really corporate socialism.
Yeah, my friend Jose, when they arrested those employees here illegally at that chicken plant in Mississippi, they didn't arrest the owners that hired them.
Now, some patients can pay for our services and some can't. But last week in our emergency rooms hallway, we had 54 people lined up waiting for treatment.
Hang on, did you say 54 people in an emergency room hallway?
Yes, and one of those beds was the mother of our hospital administrator. God bless that administrator. She was always publicly fighting to make sure that no one was ever turned down for medical care. Her mother died while waiting.
What? Jeez. Now that's what you would call reverse nepotism.
Well, we need more resources and levels of insurance so that those in need of treatment can have a choice of services more in line with their needs. Not everybody should be coming to the emergency room, but people die, no matter who they are, because when we're stressed beyond what we can provide, incompetence and lack of care can flourish.
And, instead of giving billions of dollars to incompetent VA hospitals, wouldn't it make more sense to give that money to hospitals to improve their capabilities to serve veterans as well?
Yes. When I was at the VA, we had a veteran die in their cafeteria. He was waiting for an ambulance, and it took a half an hour for the ambulance to go from one building to another.
What the hell, VA? It's like they want us to all die off.
He died?
Yes, he died. And my Uncle John was a veteran and a retired New York City cop. He was recuperating from bypass surgery and on his way toward a complete recovery in a well-known Florida rehab facility when a night nurse took the precaution of sending him to an ill-equipped and ill-staffed emergency room where he died of sepsis. He was pleading with me on the phone to come and get him because the doctors and nurses couldn't properly place an IV.
Nurses and doctors couldn't get it right?
And my uncle, who we all expected to live, died in a hospital emergency room that the state then declared as incompetent. And this was on the 4th of July.
That's horrible. I'm so sorry. But don't go to a hospital on holiday. The good doctors and nurses get to take them off.
Can't escape the personal side. It affects everyone.
Yeah. When a medical system is under pressure to provide care, people we know and love die. But it takes money and resources to alleviate the pressure.
We spend $300 billion on war and $3 billion on the fight against cancer.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. You know what they spent $3 billion on, too? That stupid Cash for Clunkers program. Remember, guys, when the government would give us money for a used car, if we bought a new one, the freaking thing loses value as soon as you drive into the street. $3 billion, man. Same as cancer research. Disgusting.
But just look at all the advances we've reached with just our current level of medical spending. Research scientists are now saying that for $300 billion, we could have the cures for all the cancers and all the other diseases affecting the population of the world. Again, it just takes money.
300 billion? Well, it sounds pretty cost effective when you consider Trump and Congress are now spending, what, trillions to recover from a virus they probably could have had a cure for ahead of time?
Maybe our elected officials could discover enough corruption and waste in those no-bid contracts given to fight our wars and bribes we give to countries who end up being our enemies to provide resources to find cures for those diseases.
Or we could do what that senator in New Mexico tried to do by establishing a fund with hundreds of millions in their state surplus. That program would have provided free medical testing and preventative care for all state residents. And it was determined that his plan would have saved thousands of lives, billions in costs of care, and reduced the cost of insurance through early identification of medical problems. Instead, the governor had a railroad built by his presidential campaign supporters that hardly anybody rides.
Yeah. It's the same old thing with those we elect. Motivated by just fame and fortune. All talk, no action. They're cowards. It's gotten so bad that I actually respect and trust someone who could just honestly tell me, I really have to take care of my buddies in Congress. I really enjoy those favors of lobbyists. Boy, do I like getting paid $175,000 working 2 days a week. And I can't beat using your money in the Treasury as a slush fund to cover up the sexual harassment claims against me. But, I got to admit that I'm terrified of the IRS. Now, I wouldn't vote for any of those good old boys, but applaud their honesty and courage. Might even forgive the other stuff if they got rid of the IRS. God knows we should have done that a long time ago.
And I really do think God knows.
If the founding fathers were asked what to do about the IRS, they would have put them on the first boat back to England.
The folks went to war with England because they wanted to double our taxes from 1% to 2%. And now here our government's getting 70% taxes and fees on our bills. Like he said, we need the Constitution to go to war again, this time against the IRS and the corrupt corporations.
And now you know why I was yelling no taxation without representation at the meeting before.
Yeah, we knew it.
I knew it. And what's the hold that the IRS has on those we elected not to allow them to change what's going on? I mean, what could have them cause them to have such fear to do anything?
It costs us hundreds of billions just to file tax returns.
And look how corrupt they are.
And you can't measure anxiety. Can you imagine just having a flat tax? How good will it feel not figuring out your taxes in April every year? But they don't listen to us.
No, they don't listen to us. They take our money, they take our votes, and they make promises they will never keep.
You know what? What are we waiting for? We need to throw them all out of here.
Well, yeah, you're probably right. They know what we want, and they know what they said they would do, and then they get back there. And there's all this influence, all that power, and people waiting on them hand and foot.
They go from begging for our votes one day to people begging for theirs the next. It's human nature to feel you're above us all, above all of us.
There are 14,000 registered lobbyists who spend $4 billion lobbying Congress. I think that comes out to like $4 billion divided by 14,000.
30 lobbyists and $6 million.
I'm sorry. 30 lobbyists and $6 million for every member of Congress. I mean, what could they possibly buy with all that attention and money?
Well, they're paying Democrats and Republicans for protection of their employers' interests while they, piss on us.
And now we have the decision to either keep things the way they are with the same people or change the rules of the game.
Change the rules of the game? Oh, I don't think so. I mean, we just sat here and talked about how those folks we elect are afraid of their own shadows when it comes time for them to stand up and demand what they promised us they would do.
And their leadership takes care of them if they play the game, including a long list of favors that we can't even dream of.
And from what I can tell, they make a lot more than they get paid.
Oh, they think it's a privilege of saying they're a public servant. I think it sounds like organized crime.
Yeah, of course, cash is hard to follow unless they find it on your possession, like the $90,000 they found in Congressman Jefferson's freezer.
Hey, I wonder if that's where the term cold hard cash came from.
Yeah, well, he ended up being indicted for bribery and sent to jail.
But how many people even get caught like that?
or get elected to Congress without becoming millionaires? Oh, that's why it's so important to get reelected, because it may take longer than one term.
Well, I don't think they want to change the rules of the game.
And they make sure they play that game just right and reward the corporations who hire the lobbyists so that eventually they become lobbyists themselves when they leave, like Cantor and Locke did.
Yeah, or make money having investment in industries they legislate and regulate.
Nope.
Yeah, and they know in Congress that you don't get perks unless you give your support. And it's the lobbyist's job to make the offer. I mean, at least that's how it was explained to me by Jack Abramoff. He's one of Washington's most powerful lobbyists. I met with him when he got out of prison, right? And he told me that he was giving those gifts to members in Congress who did what he wanted them to do, even though they were supposed to be making these decisions on our behalf. I mean, he couldn't remember anyone who didn't play the game with him. And bribes and tips and trips they give involve their staff, their family, and their friends.
Hey, why don't you ask your senator what his spouse does for a living? I bet it's something that got to do with a lot of money, the senator and a freaking lobbyist too, right?
Yeah, and includes insider information that can make them each millions of dollars in the stock market.
Yeah, or when they get that insider information about the coronavirus destroying economies, you had Senators, Burr, Loeffler, and Feinstein, right? They sold their stock, saving millions, without telling you to get rid of your stock.
And you don't think Wall Street controls the government? Their support just doesn't show up on the campaign reports. That was Bernie's #1 issue against Hillary.
Yeah, and you don't even have to be a member of Congress. I mean, former governor of Virginia, head of the Democratic National Committee, and Hillary's chief fundraiser, Terry McAuliffe, he made $18 million off a $100,000 investment. That was with Global Crossings. This was his company that received a $400 million contract with Clinton's Pentagon. That's an 18,000% profit.
Man, what? Wait a minute. Come on, that can't be true. Did I hear that right? 18,000%? Nobody in the history of mankind has ever made that much. Have they?
Maybe that's what politicians make these days. Who the hell knows?
I would think 100% would be a lot. I mean, that's doubling your money.
Yeah, so some would say that he was either incredibly lucky or incredibly corrupt, then elected governor.
Well, all the while, Martha Stewart was rotting away in rich person's prison for doing and making a lot less.
Rotting away?
Yeah, all right. Maybe not rotting away. I'm sure she was doing some cooking and decorating as well. Still, it's a double standard for an above average Jane like Martha.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, former President George H.W. Bush also got $14 million of Global Crossing stock to give a speech, an hour speech to their executives at lunch instead of his usual $80,000, right? Then his son, the other George Bush, canceled Global Crossing's contract. Company collapsed. McAuliffe got out just in time. Hopefully Bush Sr. did too.
Well, and some of Trump's cabinet also had already made huge stock market profits because of insider information even before he hired them. I mean,
That's really going to change out there in government, right?
yeah, it's like if they pass a defense bill or drug bill or any kind of bill, somewhere along the line, someone will make money off of having early information about what the bill affects.
And how many jobs and benefits have the families of those in Congress and their buddies received from industries they've been influenced by lobbyists to protect?
Yeah, I mean, how wrong was it that Scott Hatch, who's the son of the former Republican Senator Orrin Hatch of Utah, he was lobbying for the makers of ephedra, while his father then sponsored legislation to have that diet supplement exempt from federal regulations. And then Scott gets paid $2 million for his hard work and efforts.
Well, what, not another son influencing another dad. I mean, does it ever end?
No, and then you had Joe Biden's son, Hunter. He received millions from this Ukraine energy company, while the vice president helped send $1.8 billion of aid to Ukraine. And then Hunter and John Kerry's son, Chris, they received $1.5 billion from the Bank of China.
Guys, it's the sons. Now we got Ivanka coming.
Oh,
Yeah.
listen, how are we going to compete with big business and money from foreign countries when they've all bought that influence and access? It's criminal.
And, it's also these lobbyists who put together these deals. We need to limit their power. I mean, face it, it is the only way. Wait, okay. I'm sorry. I'm starting to cross the line. I mean, I've got to stay objective.
No, you've got to be honest.
Come on, let's hear it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, listen, okay. All right. Okay, let me just stop being a reporter for a minute, okay? I mean, isn't it the reason that we elect those members in Congress to represent us? I mean, Congress should be our lobbyist, right?
Maybe we should just ask those members of Congress to sponsor a bill that gets rid of lobbyists, right?
A good thought, my young rebel. However, that might run aground of the Constitution.
Really? Just something else another generation forced us to have to deal with.
But, listen, it might do Congress some good to hear from average folks without all the politics, us setting the goals and rules for them to follow. We just got to figure out how to get there.
Hey, okay, this is good. I think I got a way to fix this. Well, maybe two ways. My mind's really racing. First, we got to put on paper these people in office on the spot. And then we got to do that by getting them to sign a document so they're either with us or against us on making the country ours again. All right? And then we do what's called a convention of states, which seems to be catching on. But first, getting them to sign the contract.
Oh, we can call it the contract with the American people.
That was my idea.
Yeah.
I kind of have been putting one together after hearing you guys talking about it every day.
You were listening to our private conversation?
Hello? I was paying you at the time?
Oh, okay. Guess it's okay then.
You did this? This is great. Thank you. This is
welcome.
Love it. See, we're all thinking the same thing. We just got to join together, and then we can use what the Constitution, like I was saying before. See, our founding fathers had the foresight to put in Article 5 in the Constitution, which gave us the opportunity to have states convene a convention to take on the role of Congress and pass amendments.
So you're saying we can change the Constitution without Congress by ourselves?
You're damn right. That's what I'm saying. We could start by getting rid of lobbyists, like you said.
Oh, no. Sorry. If it's okay with you, I'd rather not take the credit since I came here to report the news, not to be the news. And being that I'm a fan of the First Amendment, I don't think we can get rid of lobbyists.
Yeah, or reporters.
Besides, law limiting contributions from lobbyists and all that other crap doesn't work.
Well, hold on a minute. I mean, let me think. Maybe it will, right? If it's absolute, right? I mean, Abramoff seems to think that we need to eliminate all political contributions from anyone doing business with government to those running and serving in office. So no gifts of anything.
Oh, you mean no whining and dining?
No, not even a hot dog. So forget about all those limitations we wanted to impose. We just stop it all together.
How come nobody's tried that before?
I think they tried it with the anti-corruption bill, but then the Senate blocked its vote.
Well, let's go protest. I'll get some of my college friends.
Yeah, they tried that a few months ago and they actually arrested the protesters.
Oh, shit. They actually arrested the anti-corruption protesters? Really? What is the balls that must have took, huh?
Yeah, it was like Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
An exaggeration.
Okay, we start with eliminating contributions from lobbyists, then term limits and balancing the budget and fixing that Citizen United ruling that the Supreme Court got wrong.
That's great. And what if you work in Congress, you're barred from life from lobbying, including all the members of your staff?
Yeah. I wrote down Abramoff's advice to pass on to those members wanting to represent us. He said, if you choose public service, choose it to serve the public and not your bank account. When you're done serving, go home and get a real job. Because guess what? Washington, not a safe place to live.
Hey, that's what I was saying.
Wow, you've got to use that right from the horse's mouth.
You know what? He's trying to help us take our country back from those who are destroying it.
But it's still way beyond the lobbyists and those crooked officials. We need to unite to compete against all that money and power and demand that our voices are heard.
Yeah, but corporations own lobbyists who bribe those we elect. Changing Citizens United cuts the head off the snake.
Yep. Hey, guys, what do you think about forming a new party? Like, we could like the populist party. It's something catchy. Come on now. No?
Yeah. Hey, you know what? That's not bad. But for a minute there, I thought you were going to say the prostate party.
But seriously, I think as many parties as it is, I don't think my generation would trust a political organization after seeing what happened to like all of them.
I think you're right, but we don't want to get locked into issues and platforms, do we?
Okay, but what else can we do? I mean, we all vote to those we elected, write letters, call talk shows. Nothing's worked. And now they're arresting
Okay, okay, but look, like I said, we have the introduced the lobbying bill.
No, wait. The first thing we need to do is to demand that Congress give us our money back that they used to cover up sexual harassment and all that other stuff they got sued for.
Yes.
Let's find out who these creepos are and what they did too, right?
Yeah, this time let's send someone to jail.
Okay, that's good. And now we're acting like cages, trust me. So the second thing we're going to do is get the lobbying bill introduced and demand they either pass the bill or we demand they immediately resign from office.
Yeah, you know what? Guys, just keep the image in your head of these people holding behind their closed doors. They're always talking about how stupid we are and how if they hang together, we'll back down like we always freaking do, right?
And do they really deserve $140,000 a year pension for working 2 days a week?
Yeah. Also, what if we reduce their yearly pay to $120,000 a year? 3 times what the average Joe makes,
Which is still more than the average Jane makes.
Right.
Yeah, and not the 175,000 they raised themselves to. If it's not enough money for them, they can quit and get a job just like the rest of us.
Hey, you really want to address another injustice? Let's pay these women members of Congress less than what the male members get paid, so it matches national pay inequality, since there's no such thing in Congress.
No,
Girl, you're crazy. That will never happen.
I'm saying that maybe if there was inequality in Congress, as there is in our real world, these elected women would fight a lot harder to make sure that us average Janes were being paid equal with the average Joes. Obviously, they've forgotten their sisters in their fight for fairness.
I don't know about that one.
Well, if you want to talk about inequities, I got one for you. How about we remove the taxes that we have to pay for tampons? It costs me $7 a month plus tax to be a woman.
Oh boy, here we go.
No, she's right. Women are forced to pay taxes for 40 years of their lives for something that's an absolute necessity.
You know, I followed this story in California where that tax adds up to $20 million a year. And then former Governor Jerry Brown, he was a champion of women's rights. He actually vetoed the bill exempting tampons from taxes.
Of course.
Yeah, they all championed the causes of the state before the people elected them.
And they got you arguing about women's issues as they're stealing you blind. It's amazing the stuff they get away with because we're so distracted.
Again, you would think congresswomen would be all over this one, but after they're elected, they don't have to worry about how much they pay for what to them is now a minor necessity.
Yeah, so government can plan exactly what they're going to bring in every month from rich and poor women alike. Talk about regressive gender-specific tax.
So I'm paying tax on something just because I'm a woman. Shouldn't this be in food maybe category?
Yeah, it's another inequality to men. Hundreds of millions in taxes that fund governments that are tax-free for men. So I guess they don't have a reason to want to change it.
But accepting the tax doesn't make it equal. I mean, with what you're saying, I think you have to have the government somehow pay for tampons for women.
Yeah, save us billions.
Hey, pretty soon we'll be giving you free lipstick too. What do we?
Come on, man. What is wrong?
Socialism. That's what you'll get for free.
And maybe some
Yeah.
stuff.
All I'm saying is that if we want to decide what's fair for all of us, let's put this one on the table right now. We need to start challenging the way things have been and put some money in all of our pockets, like you said.
I also think we need to remove access to Congress to benefits not available to us average citizens, like free health care. Yeah, let's see how they like standing in line in the emergency room.
So listen, first we're going to present this contract to those candidates and elected officials with all our concerns and demand they sign right here, right there.
Yeah, well, what if they refuse to? What if they refuse to sign this contract?
Or if they refuse to sign this, then we assemble the convention of states to do it for them. If memory serves me right, I think we need 34 states to agree to convene and then 38 states to amend the Constitution, just like Congress.
Yep, it's right here in my Constitution.
See, I told you. And at that convention, we should do everything here. Limit lobbyists, balance the budget, have term limits, your favorite, get rid of the IRS and get back our liberties given away by the Supreme Court.
Yeah, we need to change the way our city's being run, not just the people running it.
Yeah. And we're going to do it for all the lives lost and the causes of our freedom and liberty left on the battlefields for these crooks to come home as our vets come home poor. As the media drapes more time on those who dishonor the flag than those who have the flag on their caskets.
Kids from our families getting killed because they were in control of our lives and we let them.
And now we're being killed by corporate greed from the phone companies with their cell tower radiation and a government that allows for the poisoning of our air and water. Our family members are dying horrific deaths, and we sit back and watch.
But that's one of the things that brought us all together tonight. Water, right? The poisoning of our most valuable resource. Remember? It's what caused us all to agree to disagree.
Oh, I thought it was a coronavirus.
Hey, Nature Boy, what's the plan going to be?
Well, we've got to hold the government and those corporations accountable for poisoning the water. But it's also stupid to keep spending hundreds of billions repairing damage from floods and having folks getting killed. We need to change a disaster to a solution by using that money that's being wasted to build man-made waterways, to carry floodwaters to canals and culverts, piping water from like flood areas to areas of drought, for agriculture. And then plant mega forests on what used to be barren land to suck up the carbon dioxide and clean up the atmosphere.
Like I said, carbon dioxide helps plants grow. And how come we haven't done this before?
Probably because it sounds a little crazy, man.
Well, it may be because of the money. It probably costs over $1 trillion to complete.
Yeah, maybe, but would create tens of thousands of jobs, save thousands of lives, and hundreds of billions in damages every year.
Yeah, and you would think with all that spending of that money on public works projects would actually help the economy recover instead of just giving it away.
Listen on. Sounds like Miss Reporter finally understands the economics of our dilemma.
Let's not forget the benefit of the water.
Besides, we probably lost over 10 trillion of our debt to theft, which the government and media refuses to investigate.
Yeah. I mean, where's all the roads, schools, bridges, and that should have been built with all those money? I mean, that's what we thought the debt was paying for, right? They stole your future. And here we go again.
And those trillions stolen from us could have given us years of free education instead of trillions of dollars in college loans that we're going to have to pay back.
You know what? We're still not out of order yet.
Right.
So,
right. Okay. Listen, we need to start yelling enough's enough, whether it's on the internet or in person. At those legislators who refuse to sign this contract and tell them to resign over and over at every meeting, in front of every camera, in every newspaper, even if it's on video and Twitter, Instagram and Snapchat.
Newspapers, talk shows.
We are not doing
Get it out there.
Too much now.
And we're going to change things by getting away from watching sports and singing and dancing on TV after it all comes back to normal, and rather go to meetings pointing fingers at corrupt politicians when you know that's never going to happen.
No, we got a contract at a convention that'll change all that.
And a pretty good network of environmental organizations that can help get the word out.
Oh, yeah. They did a really nice job with the Occupy movement, showing their commie protesters taking the shit on TV when we were protesting down at the park over here, right?
While your retired buddies in the Tea Party all are having ongoing prostate problems.
Hey, you got to stop arguing, all right? Sometimes I think you guys must work for the government. And observing opposition of government and corporation, I think all those groups can help.
Yeah, but we need to keep this conversation going and educate people what's happening to our country now more than ever.
Yeah, but nobody's going to want to talk about this stuff with this virus still hanging over our heads. All this stuff will disappear like the lead in the water.
Oh, what about that revolution I was yelling about? Protesting all over the country, exposing corruption between the government and these corporations? No?
That's great until they tell you you're quarantined.
And you know what you could do? You can get one of those fancy neck tattoos with Trump's face crossed off.
Oh, yeah? Well, at least with our president, we have a chance at economic recovery. Not like you guys wasting all your friggin' monies on coke and birds and monkeys. Man.
Oh, she's not looking after.
Hey, stop! Are you guys still at each other? I thought this virus brought us together. Although they're probably not going to allow you to ride in the same car.
You know, our bartender's right about what the focus of everyone in the country is going to be. It's the virus, and there's no getting away from it. So we need to put our efforts to work at solving the problems with testing, and then we get the lobbyists to do
Take this contract home, print it up, scan it on your computer, and somehow give it out at every meeting and campaign and in front of all the media. Because don't forget, there is still an election going on, and we need to make a difference.
And I could help with a Facebook page called Conversations with an Average Joe, with our stories about all the way that government and corporations treat us average Janes and Joes, with no fake news, just the truth that they can't hide.
Okay, good. So your social media can lead us to demanding that a contract be signed, having a convention, and giving you a future you can live with.
Wow. I've got to tell you, I mean, when I first met you folks, I thought there is no way they're going to agree. I mean, you guys are so different with so many different opinions, but now you're dedicated to helping each other. And I want to continue with you on this journey. Since you're going to need someone with real news. Right?
Good. Listen, we got it all together now. We better figure out a way to get back to our homes and find out what new rules they have waiting for us.
Why? What the hell are they gonna do? Arrest us and put us in jail where we catch this shit? They don't have the balls.
Holy crap! The feds just pulled up.
No.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here.
Turn out the lights.
Wait. Where's my book?
Give me back my recorder.
Come on, go out the back door.
Hey, guys, they know where I live. I can't afford bail. I can't go home. Where am I gonna go?
Come with me. I'll give you a place to rest.
Who said that?
Matthew.
Oh, guys, hold on here. There's a big misunderstanding there. I was yelling taxation without representation. I was on your side. Huh?
Let him go.
Hey, let him go.
Let him go.
Go.
Guys, all right. So you guys are here to make sure everyone gets home safe, yeah? Can you give me a ride then? Yeah?
Hey, everyone. God bless you, and may God bless our country. I'm going home, and thanks for having a conversation with an average Joe.
Thank you, guys. What a wonderful job.
Thank you.
That was really good.